have a number of conversations. We'll be looking at the headlines in the papers shortly. And we'll also be having a conversation with the ODM leader of the official opposition NASA coalition. He is the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. He'll be with us in the 7 o'clock hour. We'll have a conversation with him. If you'd like to tune into this and maybe you're moving up and down and you're not able to listen to the radio, or you're not able to, all you need to do is text the word Raila to the SMS short code 40127. 40127, just text the word Raila. You'll shortly receive a link to the interview, so you'll follow the interview on your mobile device, and also you'll receive a link later with the full interview. Okay, 40127, just text the word Raila. All right, so he'll be with us in the 7 o'clock hour. We'll have that conversation, many other questions to ask of him. We're seeing a lot that's happening in the country right now in terms of county assemblies already debating the BBI bill. We already are seeing that some have already passed. Siaya led the way yesterday. More will be discussing them in coming days. They have 3 months from the moment they received this from the IEBC. Then it goes back to the National Assembly and the Senate by way of notification of the speakers of the verdict of each county assembly. And then the ball keeps rolling until ingie kwenye goli. But let's start with the COVID-19 stories, right?
Right.
What's happening in the country? What's happening globally?
All right. So let's look at stories coming out in a short while. But for now, we are looking at 104,901,704 cases of COVID-19 across the globe. We're seeing a decline in numbers in the United States, a slight decline, but this means that not as many people being infected as had been. If we look at the numbers that they did record yesterday, 113,459, 116,000 the day before, 126 the day before. And if you look at the numbers that they were recording, before that, they were into the 200s of thousands. So things have significantly reduced. We are looking at many, many more people having received the vaccine in the US, and them continuing with this drive to see that as many people as possible will get the vaccine in the next coming months. All right. Still 17 million more cases than in India, who is in second when it comes to infections globally. India is at 10,791. They have also begun giving vaccines to their populations in high numbers as much as they can. Brazil, interestingly enough, the third now in the world, has not yet begun with their vaccines. They're hoping that they will get some in the coming days to start this, but they still see high infection rates of COVID in Brazil. Okay, now there's a lot going on. If we look at the neighbors here, Tanzania, talked about the fact that there was no COVID. And we saw the pictures of the health minister the other day, mixing a concoction with the rest of the cabinet members and saying, drink this. It was a concoction of ginger and something else. She said, drink these things, we will be fine. And then not too long after that, VP Saif Hamad of Zanzibar tested positive for COVID-19. This came out in the news, and it was evident that maybe there is COVID in Tanzania. And that notwithstanding, whether people are using these traditional concoctions or not, still chances of being infected. So he's in hospital right now, said to be in critical condition. By the time he got to hospital, he needed oxygen. So many now are speculating, all right, so could there be many more? It's just because it's a prominent individual and the news of the same came out. Are there many more people who might be infected with COVID-19?
Many of these traditional concoctions or neo-traditional concoctions, what they most certainly do is they boost your immune system. That doesn't prevent you from being infected. No. It simply means that even if you are infected, your system has the capacity to fight off the ravages of this particular virus. That's what happens to you. Yep. It doesn't mean you will not be infected.
True.
It doesn't mean that if you're tested, you will test negative.
True.
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing that will really stop you from being infected unless you live alone and you don't eat bats and all those things. That's That's why when they say wash your hands, it doesn't mean that if you wash your hands, you will not get infected.
No.
Or wear a mask, you will not get infected.
No.
Or keep your distance, you will not get infected. There's no messaging that goes with to avoid infection. It's to minimize the chances of infection. And now, in terms of boosting immunity, is to give your body a fighting chance on this, right?
Yes.
So the moves that we are seeing the government of Tanzania taking are basically just in line with what they've been doing. Basically, it's minimizing the public sort of importance of the fight against COVID, but at the same time giving the other message of, you know what, guys, steam, you know what, boost your immunity, take this a lot of ginger and all concoctions and all. And then the message from that health minister as well is that we are not going to do any talk of purchasing the COVID vaccines until we are very sure of what they're doing. So there's still the until bit of until we are very sure of the efficacy and all. I think it's just, you can just see clearly what the government of Tanzania is doing is it's saying we will not give this a lot of attention.
Like this
We're not giving this a lot of attention on this, because if we give it attention, then it's either we give it attention and go all out, or we don't give it attention at all and give alternative attention. Which sort of, if you look at what Tanzania, and you remember what we even discussed even last year, if you look at what Tanzania has been doing and what Kenya has been doing, so apart from one coming out publicly to say this is the attention we're giving, and the other one coming out to say this is the attention we are not giving, what is the difference? Get out of Nairobi and look at the number of people who are wearing masks or enforcement of those. There's a curfew in place. So what's the impact of that in the fight against COVID? There's talk of, hospitals getting prepared. What is the actual situation on the ground in terms of our health facilities actually capable of dealing with cases of COVID-19?
I think initially the difference would have been there was just the denial that it existed, and even when it did, it was saying that, all right, there was a prayer that was said and then COVID disappeared. I think that would have been the difference. Denial of its existence completely, that it doesn't exist in Tanzania. And clearly that has changed now, because it's all right, so even if it's here, let's use other means and methods to deal with it, as opposed to what the rest of the world is doing. So I think that would be the difference. You
know what I've actually asked myself, especially with the recent pronouncements that the president of Tanzania made. Unless I read that this is a quotation directly from him, sometimes is it possible it's a reporting issue? Is this somebody who perhaps was simply being overcautious, or simply saying, folks, these vaccines are not always what they appear to be? Or is it that he belongs to that group of people who don't believe in anything that is Western bound? Or he is one of these people who believes that as the president, he knows best what is good for his people. And when he pronounces it, it should be so.
It was the second. I would say it would be the second option that you preferred, because
that's
it's exactly what he said. No. That African countries, and using Tanzania as a specific example, should not be very quick to take anything that comes from the West. It's not the first time that he's talked about such. We see the same where he talks about, reporting coming from Western nations that don't just believe anything that comes out of the West. We are here on the ground and we can see the difference. It's not the first time he's talked about it with COVID. That whole idea of, tainted information coming from the West, and we're so quick to gobble it up as Africans. So it's not the first time that he's talked about it.
But it's cautionary, is it not?
Oh, it could be.
Because remember, all that would be simply advisory if he didn't then throw in the Almighty God into the mix. Because when you throw in the Almighty, then there's this appearance that he's leaning towards a sort of mantra that one heard from the extreme right within the Republican Party of the US. These are people who if there's any conspiracy that you can possibly conjure up and believe in, they will conjure it up and believe in it. And they will act on it as though it's the truth. Remember I said, far right. QAnon.
It's true.
Yes.
Russia, meanwhile, the Sputnik 5 is out. And it has basically been reported that this one is doing very well. The Sputnik 5 vaccine from Russia, according to a report published in The Lancet, they say it has a 92% effective rate. So 92% effective rate, and other researchers have commented around the same on Lancet says the development of the Sputnik 5 vaccine has been criticized for unseemly haste, corner cutting, and an absence of transparency. This is according to Ian Jones, who's a professor at the University of Reading, and Polly Roy, professor at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. But they both say the outcome reported is clear and the scientific principle of vaccination is demonstrated. So they say, at least now we have another vaccine that's joining the queue to reduce the incidence of COVID-19. All right, so the Russians are in the mix as well. You know, when you see all these things, the Russians have this, the Chinese have, all these ones are being made in India. It basically is some good news for African countries. Because it talks about, talks about the options and possibility of them getting, and looking at then people like Russia and China wanting to spread their influence with friendliness and friendship. They'll use the vaccine as well.
Actually, it does. Because if you're thinking about it, remember Pakistan had this issue with this vaccine that is essentially developed and worked on in the UK, but mostly produced in India. Now, India and Pakistan don't really get along. They're not just buddy-buddy, chummy-chummy.
You could say that.
Yes. So much as you may want this and you have this understanding, guess who then have come in to the rescue? Take your guess. Okay, I will give you a hint. It's either China or Russia. Okay. But the point is, the options are now available.
Yes.
And the options keep increasing, and they're unlikely to diminish soon. Yes.
Keep it right here. It's 6:15. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. We're live streaming already on Spice FM KE on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Remember, if you'd like to watch the interview with the Right Honorable Raila Odinga from 7 a.m. and you're not anywhere near your radio, you can actually follow it by live streaming, or send the word Raila to the SMS number 40127. Just text the word Raila to 40127. You'll receive a link to the interview. And thereafter, after the interview is over, you'll receive a link to that interview as it happened. Good morning. It's 6:15.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Living with HIV is not a death sentence. Thanks to advances in medicine, HIV is now a manageable illness, with patients able to lead normal lives and raise families as they achieve their goals and their dreams. Tune in to the Spice Drive with me, Monique, from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. every weekday as we talk about HIV, why it's important to know your status, ways to protect yourself, how you can get tested, and how testing positive should not stop you from living a normal life. Courtesy of the National AIDS Control Council, NACC.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz.
Let's take a look at the skies this morning. Nairobi, 17 degrees and mostly cloudy at the moment. It's going to go to highs of 28 today, looking like a significantly warm day. 12 degrees and clear in Nyeri at 12, going to highs of 27. It'll come down to lows of 13. 15 will be the low in Nakuru, which is what it currently is, and mostly cloudy, rising to highs of 29. 26 will be the high in Eldoret today, 13 degrees and clear at the moment. It's clear in Kisumu at 22. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 31. 31 21 will also be the high in Kakamega. It's clear at 15. It's mostly clear in Mombasa for now, 25 degrees, going to highs of 33. 31 will be the high in Malindi. It's partly cloudy, and 26 right now. Clear conditions in Kampala, moving out of Kenya at 22. We will see highs of 28. We'll see highs of 33 in Dar es Salaam. It's 27 degrees and mostly clear here. Mostly cloudy in Johannesburg at 16, going to highs of 21. We'll see highs of 33 in Lagos, where it's partly cloudy at 28. Clear skies in Kinshasa for now at 25, going to highs of 33. There's sunny conditions 8 hours away in Beijing. 1 degree at the moment. It'll go to highs of only 8 and down to lows of -8. 6 degrees and mostly cloudy. Really windy in Paris this morning. Highs of 12 and lows of 6. Clear skies in London at 6, going to highs of 10 and lows of 7. And in New York, it's still Wednesday night, but it'll creep into Thursday morning at 1 degree, partly cloudy, highs of 2 and lows of -2.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's actually after 6.
Okay.
Which day is it, Eric?
Tuesday.
See, okay.
Yeah.
No.
So, here we are. Who is online already this far?
Right. So Master Dan is tuned in from Beijing and says good morning. He's live this morning. Good morning, everyone. Spicing up Mombasa, and that's Robertson Bogo. Mary Morethi is tuned in from Nyeri. And Arthur Ohoma says, good morning, guys. Tuned in from Mombasa. Have a good day. You too, my friend. Would assemble me inside from the foot of Ngong Hills. That's Kennedy Ouma. Cyprian Morris tuned in this morning from Nakuru County. And CT, for your pleasure, Nakuru County is county 032. Don't forget that. You grew up here.
032.
Yes.
I did grow up there.
Yeah. That's county 032, Nakuru County.
Excellent.
Got it.
It's next to county 33.
Perhaps. Okay. Juja is tuned in. Moses Gashari. He's tuned in this morning. Lawrence Carrier is tuned in this morning and says, have a good day, everybody. Linus Ojala tuned in this morning from Uasin-Gishu County. Michael Ocheng is tuned in from Makongeni in Nairobi. He's waiting for the proverb from Charles Theodore Muga, otherwise known as Cindy Muga. Michael Ocheng Sir Harold Wafula. Saharan Wafula is tuned in from Kisumu and says, Mazungumzo yaendele.
Safi kabisa. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show. So, Bwana Muga, medali ya leo tafadhali.
This one, I will direct it straight at our sister, Nduoko. Okay. Yes, Kombo Ndu and Oko.
Okay.
Yes, no one uses another one's teeth to smile.
No one uses another one's teeth to smile.
If you're going to smile, use your own teeth.
Why are you conscious of your teeth now?
I'm not.
So you smile. What is it?
Display the dental formula.
Should I borrow Eric?
Yani quick inspection.
Should I borrow someone's teeth for now?
Okay, let's look at the headlines.
Okay, let's look at the headlines, shall we?
Yes.
Sonko staring at long prison term. This is what is on the front page of The Nation today. All stop. State is determined to put him behind bars. Whether Mike Sonko, a politician who beats all odds on his way to the top before tumbling down, has finally run out of proverbial 9 lives of a cat, will be known, and his fate rather will be known in the coming days. So We know that he's going to be attending a bail hearing today as to whether he will be allowed out on bail or not.
Yep.
And it's saying that for him, the chickens have come home to roost. State security machinery last evening engaged a higher gear as it activated all options at its disposal to send former City Governor Mike Sonko to jail. Whether Sonko, a politician who beat all odds on his way to the top before tumbling down, has finally run out of the proverbial 9 lives of a cat. At the moment, however, the plan is to push him into a corner where he cannot speak. Yesterday, the flamboyant politician appeared before the Kahawa West Law Court on a terrorism-related charge. This was just hours after the former city boss appeared at the anti-corruption court for a mention of a case where he's accused of demanding 10 million shillings from a private firm to grant a contract to collect revenue in the county. Located in the Committee Maximum Prison Compound, Kahawa Law Court is the first and largest court in Kenya dedicated to counter-terrorism and related high-risk cases. It was officially launched in December last year, and Sonko is so far the highest-profile guest. The court is today set to rule on the prosecutor's application to hold him at committee jail for 30 days. He spent the night at the Gigiri police station. So things are moving quite quickly here, it seems.
So first, he was invited to go to the DCI to record a statement about the statements that he had made about 2017.
Yes.
He gets there. He is then taken to court because of other things that happened in Buruburu.
Yes.
And then now the DCI is saying this man is arming a militia. The DCI claims that he is recruiting a militia to disrupt peace and stability of the nation, which could lead to anarchy and civil disobedience. That's why he's ending up in the anti-terrorism court. So, these are
many things just seem to be coming.
These are big and they're heavy. So one was robbery with violence, capital. The next one is terrorism. Because the way he's been dressing in military regalia.
Yes.
So it appears that he's been doing all these things behind the security agency's back. Okay. You can clearly see that Sonko is being taught a lesson. But I'm going to ask the same question that I was asking yesterday. Is it not going to be reckless and irresponsible of the police to actually come up with such issues at this point if you're not going to be able to prove it?
Because what it would appear, look, without looking at the intricate details of it, without what you're saying, what it would look like is as if a flurry of things is being brought about and hoping that one or two of them will stick.
Yeah.
But it would appear that in terms of preparation, in terms of evidence, to the T, perhaps it has not yet been done because it's all right. Well, while you're here, let's throw this charge at you. While you're on your way there, by the time you arrive, there's another charge that will be waiting for you kind of thing. So it's like, all right, which one will stick as we keep tossing them out?
But you see the way he's been dressing. This looks military. He's arming militia.
Take the view, or take the alternative view, that there are things that someone can do when they're in a position of power. And because they're in a position of power, the things will be given, the activities will be given a passing nod. But it doesn't mean it will not be noted. You will say things, they will say, okay. Now, come the day when attention is given to these same matters, they then acquire a completely new flavor. Remember the discussion we've had before. At what point do you become a liberator and at what point do you become a mass murderer?
Yep.
At what point?
It's true on a global view of things. But in this particular case, are you saying that the police could see that this man is arming militia with the intention of causing the disruption of the public order? But they were like, okay, he's a mheshimiwa, we can't arrest him.
Actually,
if somebody is arming a parallel military force to the state organs, you are just sitting back because he's a governor.
Let me.
That's
is
a big
highly
deal. You want to nip that in the bud.
Let
Immediately
me-
you find
let
out
me-
information
DCI
about
should
it.
actually be
Let
put
me
behind
give the
bars.
reason why I get that example of a liberator and a mass murderer. Is it youth empowerment or is it raising a militia? If you have Sonko rescue team, Sonko rescue the other,
Yeah.
All these things involve mobilizing young people.
Yes.
And he has droves of young people who support his cause.
Yes.
All you require is to be out of flavor, and that narrative suddenly changes. That's all I am saying.
But
I am saying,
as
yes,
you're saying
please.
that, as you say that, with Sonko rescue team, with the ambulances and buses and all, there is nothing about arming a militia.
No.
If at any point during all that it is noticed that you are actually procuring arms illegally and giving people illegally, if it is noticed that you're actually creating some sort of a military structure, it does not matter. Even if you are the highest person in the land, you should
Actually,
something will be done with you.
Eric, in theory,
If that is not done, then the
Eric,
irresponsibility. Can you imagine?
In theory, you're right.
can
In
you
practice,
imagine-
it doesn't quite work that way. I'm
But
going to
can you
explain.
imagine if
Yes.
if Sonko had unleashed, if indeed Sonko had was creating a militia? So at what point were they sitting back? So as long as he's with us, he cannot
No.
unleash the militia.
No.
Hey,
What
Shwan.
you say ought to be done is actually in theory what ought to be done, and it should. However, there are times when in practice our security forces may know exactly what you're doing, but they simply sit and observe. They want to see exactly where you're going with it. Nipping it in the bud may not help you because you may not capture all the culprits that you want at the same time. Give it time. So you're watching them. Being in control of the situation doesn't mean that you are running around capturing them. You know what's happening. You're watching. You know. Every move they make, you know.
Right.
At the time you want to pounce, you will pounce.
Right.
But you are not, because sometimes you may pounce early and alert them.
Right.
And in alerting them, you at least scare them away.
Right.
That's the thinking.
So when you get out of power, now they're like, okay, now he's going to act.
No, now there is no shield. Now there's no way he's going to run to. Because where he could run to was known. Now he can't run there. Right. But that's one perspective, Eric. The other perspective is if you fall out of favor with any government, operative word, any government,
Yep.
hell hath no fury.
No.
Yep. Including abusing power to
Hell,
basically
yes,
teach you a lesson.
hell hath no fury. My friend, you will begin to feel the full force. And as you say correctly, sometimes it is, you need to be taught a lesson, and we are going to do precisely that. Teach you a lesson.
This lesson, could just get to a point where I just teach a lesson and it's, sawa nimekubali, and then you let go.
Nope, it doesn't quite work
Right.
that way also.
If you are going to waste our court system,
State resources.
waste our state resources,
I would argue
we
that
also need to teach you a lesson.
that is a perspective. It isn't wasting. You see,
The only lesson here that you're being taught is I can do anything as long as I'm in good books.
Eric, you understand
can
things
be a
so
criminal.
easily and so. I mean, look. Remember, I quoted a certain British historian, A.J.P. Taylor, an essay he wrote in the 20th century, which was the previous century, and this is what he argued. Okay, that should we actually judge politicians on their political skills and their ability to achieve their political goals, and not on their personal morality?
6:30. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's see what's happening on the roads and then we look at other headlines. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
All right. It's really not moving this morning on Thika Road, all the way from NYS. It's bumper to bumper already, moving very slowly as you're trying to approach the CBD. Getting it to the Pangani Tunnel, that's already looking slow. It's a standstill, guys, already. Garden City then towards Survey NYS out through there, experiencing super traffic this morning. Thika Road is the one to watch for now, and hopefully it opens up in a short while. Kiambu Road also starting to pile up as is. As you get then out towards Ngara, we'll see what it looks like there. But for now, if you're not out of Thika Road, you're going to be there for a while. Coming off of Mombasa Road, we're seeing some traffic right around Syokimau. Heading out towards General Motors, it slows down again right around Bellevue, right at Nyeri Stadium roundabout. For now, it's not looking too bad, but as you get into the CBD, things are going to pick up some. All right, we're getting into traffic hour. We'll let you know what it looks like in a short bit. Spice FMKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter. Text 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Before the parliamentary committee that's investigating the KEMSA scandal, one of the parliamentary committees, I must say, the Public Investments Committee of the National Assembly, Solicitor General Kennedy Ogeto was there yesterday. He said the procurement that was done for COVID-19 supplies was illegal. But this 7.6 billion shillings deal still must be paid. In terms of the procedure was not followed, but people were contracted, people supplied, and people are owed. And you've got to pay them. So, most of the 102 firms that traded with KEMSA supplied goods worth millions of shillings on the basis of a commitment letter, and they signed contracts after making deliveries. So, Ogeto told the MPs under the chairmanship of Mvita's Abdul Swamad Nasir that KEMSA procured the items at highest price. The agency ended up spending money meant for universal health coverage in a procurement spree. He says, during the period under review, KEMSA irregularly utilized universal health coverage and capital budget to procure COVID-19 related items worth 7.6 billion shillings without evidence of approval of the budgets by the relevant authorities. The procurement was not initiated based on need assessment and planning, resulting in overprocurement of COVID-19 related stock, which is still being held at KEMSA. But he says refusing to pay the suppliers would be unfair to them because they've delivered the items, some of which have been sold to the counties. We'd like to point out that the law provides a remedy for quantum merit. In instances where a contract does not exist or cannot be performed, the doctrine means reasonable payment for work done. So, procedure may not have been followed, but you've got to pay them. Now, is that unfair or is that not?
Well, the thing is, if procedure was followed, would these firms have gotten the contracts?
If procedure was followed, would the KEMSA have procured these items?
Exactly.
Okay. Maybe not to the same amount of money, but they still have procured.
Right. So the procedure, does it point to more money having been spent?
Yes. They ended up spending above and beyond because they were purchasing.
And they also spent money they were not entitled or authorized to spend.
Yes.
On these particular firms?
Yes.
Well, then, in this case...
or rather spend in that manner.
Yeah, spend in that manner. It looks a bit dodgy because then these guys would not be getting the amounts that is basically being said that they should.
But they supplied.
That's what I'm saying. They supplied at the end of the day.
And they got a commitment letter.
So they should be paid.
Bas.
They should.
No.
They should be paid.
No.
No. You asked them to supply. They did. They signed what they needed to sign.
What is the basis of paying? That you asked them.
Yes.
And they supplied.
You gave them a commitment letter.
And you gave them a commitment letter.
They
supplied,
did what they
you
were signed some contract.
You signed that you had received.
And the onus wasn't on them to ensure that upon supplying, they were supplying according to the laid down regulations.
Yeah.
It's not their problem. By the time you're giving
isn't it?
By the time you're giving them a commitment letter, it is assumed that everything that needs to be done within your offices has been done, and the procedure has been followed. By the time that commitment letter comes out, the internal procedures have been carried out. It's not for them to go in and find out, okay, I've received this letter. Can you please make sure that you guys within your internal procedures
bring me the
did what
minutes
you needed to do?
that authorize you to give me this contract.
No. By the time you're receiving a commitment letter, it is the assumption that you've done what you needed to do. So you have committed to me. I too have committed to you. I have delivered.
And the commitment letter was given after they had supplied.
They were given a commitment letter to supply.
In order to supply.
Once they had already supplied, in the process of supplying, they were receiving their contracts.
Yeah.
It was emergency. First item out, commitment letter.
Commitment letter. I
Bring.
won't supply without that letter. Then I get the letter, I supply. You owe me.
No.
Whether there was something dodgy that you people did inside there, I don't know. I'm a supplier. City.
So what are you saying? Urudishiwe vitu zao. Come and pick your things and go.
What I'm saying is this, we've simply given a through pass to ensuring that laid down government procedures are not followed. Believe me, even in an emergency, okay, there are procedures that are laid down to be followed. Believe
That's
me,
true.
even in an emergency. Now, this particular procurement that we're speaking of seem to have flouted every procurement process that I think I know.
Sawa.
Now, someone needs to tell me this procurement process that was followed, given the emergency of the situation, and how it is that that is okay and that warrants the end result. Because the end result is known. You expect to be paid.
Yes.
Now, if you pay, then it means you are saying it is okay not to follow procedure.
No.
No, but me as a supplier, how do I know all of that?
You ought to.
How?
Because anytime you are asked to tender or you're asked to apply, you're told to follow certain procedures.
Yes.
Which you followed. That is why they gave you the commitment
And
letter.
the procedure is from your end.
Had you not followed that procedure, they would not have given you that letter.
Really?
Yes. That's how
Really?
it works.
No. No.
You as a supplier, how do you know whether these guys have gotten approval from whichever
No,
committee?
I do
of
not
the
need
board
them to know
or
that they've
ministry
gotten approval.
or-
No, that I don't. That I don't need. But my argument is procedure isn't followed. Payment is now being made, and that is okay. That really is my issue here.
What the Solicitor General is saying is that legally, we are supposed to pay these people. Then let's now deal with those that flouted procedure. Okay? Those that flouted procedure, from the ministry to the board to the management of KEMSA, let's deal with them. Now, if you want to go and surcharge them, that's a whole different ballgame. But these people supplied, they brought, according to the commitment letter, you owe them.
You know, the commitment letter may be the commitment letter it is, but it could be unprocedural. It could also be unlawful.
Ni sawa.
So, which means that even when the contract is issued, that contract is also unlawful.
Ni sawa.
Ni sawa, but I
Can you
still
imagine?
supplied.
Can you imagine today, City, if you were called by the standard management and told, the board was never aware that there's a new station called Spice that's starting.
But you've been here every morning.
So you're not going to get paid for this month that you've done. You go home. Is it your job to go and find out now, Bwana CEO, when you are signing this contract with me, had you discussed it with your higher ups? Was it part of... That's not your job. You look at who is giving you this. It's a chief executive officer of the organization. That's all.
You know, you've given a really clever example. And I know exactly where you go with that example. Because I cannot possibly comment on my contract without damning myself. It's not that I haven't seen where you're going with this. I will hold my thoughts.
For now.
And I will also hold my tongue on that particular subject for now.
Okay, looking at other folks who need to hold their tongue and their actions,
Yeah.
fears of mass failure, that was one thing that we saw out of examinations yesterday. However, according to George Magoha, when we're looking at now what's going on in schools, parents will shoulder the cost of damage occasioned by school fires. The CS also directed county education boards to convene meetings to address the situation. He instructed county directors of education to ensure that the meetings were concluded by the 25th of February. These boards, and I quote, will discuss cases of school indiscipline and other specific recommendations to school boards of management on how to end school unrest. The CS said the ministry had issued a circular on safety and security of boarding secondary schools, which should guide school boards of management in putting in place measures to preempt cases of school unrest. He spoke yesterday in Burukwanjenga and directed that the school heads put measures in place to preempt or stop school fires. But at the end of the day, says your child having been caught in the melee, you will pay.
Oh, by the way, this particular process isn't new. When university students went on a rampage and they were known to have not just caused mayhem but a lot of destruction,
It was tacked onto their
immediately,
into their
parents.
invoices
Now,
for the next term.
it may seem like it's unfair, but it works. You know why?
You think twice before you go.
You,
and
the
spend
paying
them.
parent, you are not going to let your child get away with this.
It has an impact on that.
Not only does it do, you will ask who, because see, the students among you, you must know the people who started this thing.
Yep.
You must know. I mean, you've struggled to pay fees and you know you've sorted out fees for the year.
And then here you are.
And then you're being told to pay again.
Yeah.
Because your child.
And you
votes to burn
haven't
down the
finished the SACCO repayment, because you take that loan for the whole year. There's nothing like taking a loan for the middle of the year.
Yeah.
And then you haven't. No, it doesn't work. Parents will not take this thing lying down.
No.
So whoever, Magoha has been vice chancellor and he was vice chancellor. These are things that he understands well.
He gets.
I think these are just standard. There's damage done by students. Parents come and foot. I mean, who else is going to pay for this? This is very clear. There's another story here that is quite deep, okay, in terms of what exactly it's saying. There's an amendment bill to the Basic Education Act that's before Parliament, in which the Ministry of Education is proposing major changes to the law that may see it snatch the role of managing public schools from head teachers. So, this amendment bill, wants to amend to redefine a manager in far-reaching changes that may effectively see it hire a new set of persons to manage schools. A head teacher, also called a principal, headmaster, or headmistress, is a teacher who is in charge of a school. They are responsible for managing the school and making sure that everything is running smoothly on a day-to-day basis. So it now emerges that the ministry lacks control of 30,000 school heads in public schools, which receive billions of capitation cash annually from the government. Jogoo House is uncomfortable with not being in charge of teachers who manage infrastructure and are in charge of the safety of children in schools. Up to that point, I just got confused. I was like, so what do you mean?
That is now having made
Head
a
teachers
decision.
are under, the government is not in control of the head teacher. This is...
No. The people who actually... You see, this shared responsibility between TSC and the Ministry of Education.
Right.
Do you see a tiff here? Okay. Somebody wants to change this understanding that has been there for the longest time, and they now want somebody running the schools whom they alone control.
So what does it mean? Okay. When you have head teachers and you have all the other teachers, all of them are employees of the Teachers Service Commission.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Some are employees of the
boards, right?
Yes.
But let's talk about the ones who are under TSC.
Yes.
Because the heads will always be under TSC. So, are you saying that the ministry has no influence on the management of those schools?
They have a lot of influence, but they want complete. That's why I refer to it as shared from the very beginning. If you ask me, it is muddying the waters. Because if you study education, believe me, among the units that you actually study is administration and management. As a teacher. So even as you go through the ranks, by the way, it's not as though you just wake up one morning and you're made a headmaster.
Right.
No.
You've risen.
And there's training. Okay? There are very, very few cadres of employees who get trained as much as teachers do. Okay? And the truth of the matter is, you are asking them to manage something. Look at it this way. The only other industry that I know of, the two others that come to mind, if you look at the military and you look at the service industry, you start at the very, very bottom.
Right.
And you rise up. By the time you get to a position of authority, you've passed through the ranks.
Passed through the ranks.
So you have a fairly clear idea.
And for every new rank, you go back for some training.
Yes, you do. You do. Before they move you on to the next one. So by the time somebody becomes the head, man, this person is actually very well trained. And in most cases, they know how to do their business. They know whatever the people they're overseeing are doing, they also understand and know.
Yeah.
Now you bring in a manager who is not a teacher to manage teachers. Are you not seeing a problem already in the making?
It's a big one. It's a big one. So they want this manager to manage infrastructure while the teacher manages teachers. The head teacher manages.
Actually, if I may give my opinion.
So the head teacher basically does not care about, school fees being paid, food has been bought, desks. He basically looks at our teachers reporting to school on time, are students well behaved, are we prepared for the exam, are we those.
Hospitals have what you call hospital secretaries. They're actually administrators who do precisely that. They administer.
Yeah.
And the understanding is that so that the doctors are saved from the problem of having to deal with these small
main
things.
issues.
Yes, but hospitals are much bigger outfits than schools. Even if you think of the biggest school. if indeed you think this is a good system, then they need to bring forward a better argument than the one that they're bringing. Because this particular one simply shows that there's a power struggle and somebody wants to have somebody in charge whom they control fully.
It's centralization of power, right?
Yes.
Okay, 13 minutes to 7. Keep it right here. We take a quick break and then come back. Remember, you can text the word Raila to 40127. That's Raila to 40127. You will receive the link to our interview with the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, which begins at 7 o'clock. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. "24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM."
Did you know that knowing your HIV status is simple? You can visit your nearest health center where you will be tested for free, or you can test yourself using the self-kits sold at chemists for 500 shillings only. If you test HIV positive, don't fear, because there is medication that will allow you to live your normal life. You will also be counseled on how to live with HIV and fulfill your life goals or dreams. Knowing your HIV status as a parent is beneficial for yourself and your loved ones. Expectant mothers with HIV, did you know it's possible to deliver a healthy, uninfected baby? Visit a health facility near you during your antenatal visits to get proper information, advice, and treatment for HIV. HIV treatment can improve your overall health and can protect an unborn baby from contracting HIV before, during delivery, and after birth. We must not exclude or discriminate against our HIV-positive counterparts because living with the virus is not a curse. Follow the Ministry of Health's instructions to protect ourselves from HIV and also to protect ourselves from the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. Do you know your status? This message has been brought to you by the National AIDS Control Council.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
All right, it's 11 minutes to 7. Let's take a look at other headlines in the papers. What are you looking at in terms of business, City?
Business, God. Job openings rise. Good news today as opposed to the doomy, gloomy news that I often pronounce this early in the morning. Job openings rise. Hope of economic rebound in 2021. Okay? Now, this is in the private sector. Job openings in the private sector in January rose at the second fastest pace over the past year, signaling gradual economic rebound as more businesses and lending institutions increased spending. Okay? The Market Stanbic Bank Kenya Purchasing Managers Index, PMI, a monthly measure of private sector activity, shows that the rate of new hires was the fastest since October, before, that is last year of course, before authorities tightened some of the pandemic's containment measures, which had been eased to stem a second wave of coronavirus infections. Now, this is good news. Anything that moves away from the norm, and the norm was a downward spiral, is good news. Okay?
It is. It sounds like.
It is good news. It is good news. What I'd like it to see is as to move from the index and the theory of how these things are done to actually talking to people who are experiencing, so that they can tell us exactly how they're experiencing these new changes and how many more people are actually getting employed. But my understanding of this also, with COVID has come innovation. So people have rethought or rethunk the way they normally do their things. And because of this, there have been more opportunities that have arisen, opportunities that previously weren't there. So this, for me, as people have settled down and the anxiety around COVID has eased off, this, I think, is what has been happening. But in the private sector, now the public sector is the biggest employer. So I would like to see how this sort of like translates, moves, and morphs into the activities of the public sector. Then I will be confident to talk about this new injection of change. Yes.
So you'd like job opportunities to open up in the public sector?
It
In
ought
government.
to. It ought to.
In government?
In government.
Okay. So CIA leads the dash for BBI county approval. We saw this yesterday. Endorsement. ODM leader Raila Odinga's bedrock is first off the block in the race against time to pass the referendum bill, setting the pace for the rest of the country. I don't know if it's setting the pace as much as it was some kind of action. So the County Assembly of Siaya yesterday passed the Constitution of Kenya amendment bill. After less than 2 hours of debate, the County Assembly is the first to pass the bill, hoping to set the pace for the support of the BBI. The CIA MCA's move further signaled a strong message of intent from Raila Odinga, where the BBI appears to enjoy overwhelming backing, with the document expected to easily sail through in all 6 Nyanza counties. BBI is a brainchild of President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga that was birthed after their handshake. So yesterday, they unanimously endorsed the bill shortly before 1 p.m. as they criticized those who opposed the process led by the Deputy President, William Ruto.
Okay. So more and more counties now will be discussing this, and, it's going through the motion. It's been presented to them. It goes to the committee. Committee comes to Parliament and gives their report, and then the assembly members vote either to accept or reject the committee recommendations. And we just go through the motions. 1 of 47 done. Remember, we're looking for 100%. We being the secretariat of the BBI, right?
Okay.
We being the ones who looked for 4 million signatures. Okay, so that's the target for the BBI secretariat. I'm sure.
Okay.
Get as close to 100% as possible.
You know, all these processes and these procedures that surround the BBI. The thing that gladdens my heart as I look at all these activities and as I'm an observer of it is just how vibrant our democracy is. On the one hand, you have the Linda Katiba. On the other hand is to Pinge BBI. On the other hand is to Pande Hasla. On the other hand is to Tangatange. All these things that are happening at the same time. My friend, if you're looking for an example of a vibrant democracy, it is this.
It is this one.
Yes. And just when you think that things are really thick, you suddenly get a governor has been arrested. But before the governor is arrested, a governor has
been impeached.
Yes.
It's out of office.
Yes. And just when you think that the mandarins of the treasury are all going to go to jail, all going to go to court and be charged, one of them drops out and suddenly is a witness for the government. Now, if this isn't high drama in the field and in the annals and the episodes of democracy, what is?
It's indicative of vibrancy.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
So today, Thursday, like every Thursday, the Standard has this pull-out, Home and Away, that looks at the real estate sector and all subjects around it. Today's headline in Home and Away is quite the catcher. Land speculators burn their fingers in Kiambu. After a period of sustained growth in prices are coming down in most satellite towns as housing supply outstrips demand. So this story by Wainaina Wambu in the Standard says, after years of speculative buying and hoarding, investors have found themselves stuck with vast parcels but no buyers to match their exaggerated prices. Popularly referred to as Nairobi's bedroom, Kiambu has witnessed a property rush over the years that saw the clearance of coffee and tea plantations to make way for houses, turning into a concrete jungle of apartments, gated estates, shopping malls, and industrial warehouses. Now they're saying that things have come, those prices have really come down. There's even a table here that shows the kind of percentage change that we've seen in the last 10 years. From December 2007 to 2017 in terms of land prices. Athi River has seen land prices jump up by 3.65 or 2.6%. In the recent past, Juja, which is in Kiambu County, land prices have dropped by 0.3%, Kiambu by 11%, Kiserian by 0.1%, Limuru by 3%, Ruaka by 1.5%, Ruiru by 6%, Thika by 0.9%. This compared to rise in prices in areas such as Mlolongo by 5.4%, Kitengela by 2.8%, Ongata Rongai by 8%, and places like Tigoni by 1.9%. So comparatively, those satellite towns in Kiambu County, the prices are really taken a dip.
Actually, it was to be expected. Why I'm saying it was to be expected?
Yeah.
If you have a situation, for instance, like now, when the money, the earning capacities of many people have some completely diminished, some reduced, then you will find the demand for some of these developments decreasing. It just stands to reason. And even as they keep increasing, remember, it would work wonderfully if the increase was commensurate to the increase of new job creations, the increase of people earning more, industries coming up. All this would make perfect sense. But if only one aspect of the economy is on the up and the other complementing ones are not, then you will have this slump. However, not to be a wet blanket, but according to The Nation, on page 16, it was in the headlines, 16% of Kenyans are likely to get cancer before they get to the age of 75.
Wow.
Yes. And what is even more daunting is that it's being reported that even those who deal with cancer are not sure. They cannot fully explain how it is that there are all these cases on the rise. It's puzzling. Okay? The new cases that we're talking about are in excess of 42,000. And it can't be explained. Now, I am quoting a certain Dr. Jeffrey Mutuma, a consultant pathologist, who says that some of these what is to be blamed is that for lack of research, lack of funding into these areas. So because of the absence of research, it means there's a gap in the information matrix. Research is what informs you. You know this is what's happening, but we don't. There were those who had said, well, the rise is because we are now able to detect cancer and we're able to determine. That is one reason. There are those who say, well, it's because of climate change. There are those who say it's because of our diet. There are those who say... And lifestyle. I think all these reasons may very well be true, but to be specific to Kenya, one can't pinpoint and say, look, we're having these problems in this demographics because of this, in other demographics because of this, because it's definitely on the increase.
It's on the rise.
It is.
And
all cancers. It's not one type.
Yeah,
all.
It's all of them.
Yes.
Keep it right here. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, coming up to 7 o'clock. Remember, in the next hour, we'll be having a conversation with the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, the leader of the ODM and the official NASA coalition, and also President Uhuru Kenyatta's brother. So, what would you like to hear from the Honorable Raila Odinga? You can text Raila to 40127. That's Raila to 40127, and you receive a link to this interview. That's if you're away from your radio. Good morning. It's now 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Kiambu Road is where it's looking absolutely crazy this morning. Traffic in both directions, and we've got 6 lanes now. We don't know where the other lanes going in the other direction are going to be able to camp out today, but it is crazy. It also is madness on Thika Road today, trying to get into the CBD. Very, very slow. Traffic as far back as Garden City, and it's snaking along on Thika Road today. So we don't know what the cause of this was. It's a little bit different than it was a few days before. So if you're heading in that direction, that is what lies ahead. Let's look at Jogger Road, trying to get into the CBD, coming in from industrial area, joining Jogger Road, and then joining Landis Road from the roundabout. That is slow. It's a total mess on Mombasa Road, just past Siokimau at the SGR there. It's not moving, bumper to bumper, all the way through to Cabanas today, and then out towards General Motors. So the big highways of Mombasa and Thika Road looking crazy today. Coming off Langata Road to the Timor roundabout as well. You can go through Bagathi where you'll get stuck at some point, but it's flowing. It's not too bad right now. Uhuru Highway into the CBD, extremely slow as well. So it looks like there's some crazy traffic this morning. Let's see what it looks like in a short while. We know that everybody's out and about going to work and school, so let's see what it looks like. Let us know also. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's 2.5 minutes after 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Thank you very much for tuning in on Spice FM every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. If you're in Nairobi, it's 94.4. For those in Malindi and its environs, that's around Kilifi, 97.7. Nyeri, 90.9. Nakuru, 96.0. 96.7 in Eldoret. Kisumu, it's 102.5. Mombasa is 87.9 and Nairobi is 94.4. We're also live on KTN Home for 2 hours from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. every weekday morning. And we live stream the show on Spice FM KE. That's our YouTube channel. That's our Twitter page. And that's our Twitter handle and our Facebook page as well. You can catch the live stream there. We will be having an interview and a conversation with Raila Odinga in next couple of minutes. Let's first hear today's proverb from C.T. Muga.
No one can use another person's teeth to smile.
No one can use another person's teeth to smile.
In short, you use your own teeth.
Okay.
And if you don't have teeth, then you use your gums.
Your smile is yours.
It's your smile.
You cannot borrow anybody's happiness.
It's your smile. It's your smile. It's yours.
Make your own happiness.
Yes.
Make yourself happy.
That sometimes is difficult.
It's hard, right?
Oh, yes, it is. It is. It is. It is.
Choose your happiness is basically another way of looking at it. So a number of things that are happening in the country right now. We know that we're heading towards the BBI referendum in coming days. If we have at least 24 county assemblies passing the BBI bill. One of them has already passed it, and this is Siaya that had this sitting yesterday, and they passed it, and all the MCAs as they were speaking were basically saying, this is the best thing for the country. This is what the country needs going forward. And we urge all the other county assemblies in the country to do like we are doing. Pass this bill, and let's move the country forward. Okay? So other county assemblies are going to be having these conversations. Basically, the timelines are, once the IEBC chairman, or Wafula Chebukati, sent this to the county assemblies, they have 30 days within which to actually do to look at this and either pass or reject. And then each speaker of the county assembly communicates to the speakers of the Senate and the National Assembly, giving the verdict of their county. And then it goes into the National Assembly and the Senate, and those ones pass, and then you go into a referendum. And at the referendum, it's either you pass or you reject. But there are certain thresholds. How many people who are registered to vote should participate in a referendum for it to be called legitimate? How many counties should pass for it to become legitimate? How many? All those will be checking the boxes. But this train that you kept saying, City, that has left the station, it has gone. Now they are announcing the next station.
You know, actually, it's... remember we mentioned that perhaps a possible destination was the coast. And once the train reaches the coast, what do you think happens? You offload the cargo onto a ship.
Yep.
Take the view that this ship is sea-bound.
So it's already off the train. It's
This
actually on past Kilindini Harbour.
Ask yourself the simple question. When you talk about a referendum, you talk about Raila Odinga being on the ballot box for 2022. And you talk about the BBI, and you talk about the contents of the BBI, and you talk about the possibility of what the outcome would be. What do you think people who are aligned to the former Prime Minister will read and interpret not the referendum, this matter that has been brought before the assemblies, what do you think they're going to view it as?
Anything else?
They'll view it as an election.
Aha.
Yes.
So it will be viewed as an election.
Well, that's what it'll be viewed as, because this is the ticket that is required, or this is the key that is required to open the doors.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those who are, and that's why there is this kind of push to have a for and against, so that it's clear when you're going to vote, you're actually taking your head for someone.
Yes.
And saying, I support this side and I disagree with this side.
Yep.
Well, so essentially what it is that there will be a clear winner.
The for and
going
against,
going into competition like this, the for and against is saying which side overwhelmingly selected this position.
Right.
And that's what you would look at and say, with that, it is clear that this is the direction in which the majority of the country wanted to go. And you need that. When you look at competition, you need that then to be able to say that this is the position that we took, and this is what won the day.
Yep.
yes.
Can't have anything else.
But then when you have so many people on one side, so who will you say has won the day? Is it the president and his brother Raila? Is it going to be Gideon Moy? Is it going to be Musalia Mudavadi? Is it going to be Kalonzo Musyoka? Who?
When the tally is done, depends if I am the voter, depends on who I support in that entire mix. Okay? If the side that I'm supporting seems to have the majority of the yeses and they win, then we have won.
Our side.
We have won, yes. This is not I have won, it is we have won. This
It
one
is we.
It's collective here. It's we. Yes. And it will be seen in that light.
And if the no wins, also we'll be looking at
It will be a we also. It's a we all through.
civil society, Martha Karua.
It will be a
Kivuta
we.
Kibwana,
It will be a we. Remember, it is not the event. It is the interpretation of it and what the voter sees it as. Or what it has been sold to them as. And that is what they respond to it as. There are some who will understand this is where we put a halt to certain things or to a certain individual.
Right.
That will be there. So when they go to vote, they're putting a halt to the individual. It is not the BBI. This BBI is just a vehicle, and the interpretation of it depends on who is on which side of this great debate, which is now being brought down and crystallized into the issues at the level of the county assemblies. And then it'll move from there to now what we call a referendum. Now that will be the black and white situation now being brought to light. Okay, forget the assemblies. Now it is yes or no. So where do you stand? Now, unfortunately, the reality of our politics, or the reality of politics, actually boils down to that. When you align yourself to a certain way of thinking and to an individual who represents it, then when that individual and the people who are around, who are coalesced around that idea or that thought process, that is one we. Those who are against it, that's another we. If you're in the middle, you're inconsequential. So it doesn't really matter. Okay? We haven't gotten to a point where people who are in the middle are a large enough number to actually matter. We are still at that point where the polarization is at two ends and it is clear for and against. It's always clear.
In this case, also when you're looking at this particular document and the initiative that's behind it, you still have the maximum support being rallied around individuals and not the content of the initiative, unfortunately.
Yep.
Those who are saying yes or no are not necessarily saying yes or no to the document itself. They're saying yes or no to an individual. And again, it is just, it's indicative of how the politics is. Whether you're looking at it from a party level, whether you're looking at it from individual voter level, people coalesce around an individual. That's what we're looking at now. It's the support for the individual that is going to take the day, not necessarily support for the document.
Not necessarily. No. Look at the coalitions of individuals who have raised issues around the BBI. If you listen to the argument, they're really actually valid and very strong. But when it comes to the actual process of this voting, whether it's at the county assemblies or whether at a referendum level, believe me, those details don't count. They do not count. No. The voice of the civil societies and those in opposition, it is always loud. But you see, the loudness of those voices is determined by the individual who is actually voicing that particular view.
It's the leaders.
Yes, it is.
The 2005 sort of contested referendum, because that was hotly contested.
Oh, that certainly was.
If you compare it to the 2010 one, it was the same. It was about the individuals.
Yes.
And the messaging around it was either we are going to vote against this draft bill because of what has happened, because there are people who are trying to cling on to power, and yet we need to devolve power, we need to have power spread among people. And then the opposition side, I mean, the other side that was pushing the banana vote was we are going to pass this draft so that we can lock out the doors for those who want to grab power through the back door. It was a very clear, clear cut. It's about power. If you vote yes, you are denying these other people the chance to grab power through the back door. If you vote no, you are denying these people the chance to cling on to power and to be the one-all, end-all source of power and center of power. We want to devolve power. It was like that. And so no carried the day. In 2010, what was the contest about? It was about the future. And then there was now the other side that was saying this thing has some 20% that is not palatable.
Take the view, let's take the perspective, or rather the structure that we have been basing our discussion on. Huh?
Yeah.
And look at the coalition of leaders at that particular time, the players and those who were gunning for this change, all right? It was bound to get overwhelming support.
Mm-hmm.
Because people who ordinarily might have been at each other's throats or had been at loggerheads were not at loggerheads. They were all saying, you know something?
They all came together and were saying, let's pass.
Yes, they may have been the 20%, but saying, let's look, 20% we understand, but there's the 80%. Okay? 80 surely is more significant
It's
than
good.
20.
It's a pass mark.
Yes, it's a serious,
excellent.
it's an A.
Yes.
Okay? It doesn't matter what you say, but it's a serious pass mark. So let's go with this.
And like you're saying, the North side did not have very significant leaders. Apart from William Ruto, who was coming out very strongly, the others were not as strong as Ruto. So he didn't have very many no and strong no voices.
No.
As you compare to the no voices of 2005, which had Raila Odinga and everybody else who was around the Raila Odinga and the people who now form the Orange, who were campaigning for no, versus the yes side, which had the president side and his lieutenants, mostly from the Mount Kenya region, who were then selling that message and saying, this is a power grab through the back door, and the only way we are going to stop it is by saying yes to this draft.
Yes. And the voters didn't quite agree with them, did they? I mean, there are those who agreed, but there are those who didn't. You see, when I talk about a vibrant democracy, I'm glad you've taken us that far back. Can you demonstrate and talk about vibrancy without bringing in this discussion? You had a referendum, those in government lost it, and yet we continued and went into an election. All I'm saying is the progression and the process of tolerance with change and understanding that even when you are in that seat of power and the position of authority, that you can actually lose when you present whatever perspective you have to the vote and to the public, and you accept the outcome. There are few things that can demonstrate the power of democracy and the power of the acceptance of change than some of these outcomes. Very, very few things can.
I think that even as all of this plays out, I still go back to the people, the general population, upon whom the majority of the responsibility of this decision lies on their shoulders. Then when it comes to choosing yes or no. Because at the end of the day, things passed, things gone through in terms of amendment bill, and then men coming to be the ones who will eventually vote yes or no. It would seem as if all the mechanics and all the logistics have been carried out. Passing of the bill, convincing county assemblies to do what they should or should not do, and then going out and say, all right, Kenyans, here we are. According to the constitution and the laws laid down in the land, we've done what we needed to do. The rest of the responsibility is up to you. I still see a situation whereby, I don't know if to call it unfortunate, that people still will rally around an individual as opposed to the substance of this decision. I mean, that's, for me, that's where I continue to look at. That people are going to take for gospel truth what their support of an individual then comes out as, and what is clear as, and not necessarily what they understand or what they really want when it comes to things like this.
You see, why we are fortunate and perhaps also unfortunate is that for the longest time, leaders who were in this country and were leaders then right from independence have stayed with us for all this period of time. It's only during this particular period when we've had presidential leaders, a president and the deputy, who were children. Some were not even children at independence. Okay? So history plays a very, very important role in our processes. Now, people who are now being referred to as dynasty, unfortunately, are tied tightly to that particular history. Because they wouldn't be dynasty if one of their forebears, father, uncle, someone had not been a political big shot at that point in time.
Yeah, let's take a break now and see what's happening on the roads, especially on weather. And then we come and start a conversation with the Right Honourable Raila Odinga, who is queued up and he's ready to go. So we'll take this quick break on KTN Home on Spice FM. Come back and start the interview with Raila Odinga. 40127. Text the name Raila to 40127 and you get a link to this, so you can even continue watching it even if you're off the radio, off the TV. You can follow it on your mobile device. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
From 1902, the Standard Group has transformed to help steer the ship in the right direction and become one of the leading media houses in Africa. With 4 TV channels, 3 radio stations, robust digital platform, and numerous progressive initiatives, we are everywhere our audiences are. We don't just bring content, but content that inspires and motivates the people who've supported us over the years. It is the pillar that will forever cement and uphold our heritage as the Standard Group. The Standard Group. It's our future's heritage.
Still clogged up on Mombasa Road today, also as is looking crazy on Thika Road. So here's a solution. The bypasses, east and southern, can be used this morning because at Mombasa Road, Thika Road, if you stay on them, you're going to be here for a very long time today. So folks woke up today and found themselves smack dab in the middle of a flurry of vehicles. All right, coming off Jogo Road into the CBD via Landis Road, that should be fine. Bagathi Way is an option for you to use coming off Langata Road because you will then join Nyayo Stadium if not, and then get on to Hulu Highway, which already has built up quite some. Let's take a look at how this opens up, but for now you can let us know if you're stuck somewhere. If you find a better route than what we've talked about right now, let us know as well. You can text on 40127 or tweet us, Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's coming up to 20 minutes after 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It is the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN, online on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter, and our website www.spicefm.co.ke. This and every morning you have in the room CT Muga, Ndu Oko, and Eric Latif. We now going to have our interview with the Right Honourable Raila Odinga, the leader of the ODM, and also the leader of the NASA coalition and national leader in the Republic. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you for having me in the Situation Room.
Normally when you have someone in the studio, we give them the hot seat. Yours, because it's in your residence. We have just tried to warm it up before you sat down on it, but we hope that it's comfortable enough.
Oh, certainly, yes. This is my favorite.
Great. Now, Mheshimiwa, just getting straight into what's happening around the country, the BBI bill has been taken to the county assemblies, and we've already seen action and activity happening in the county assemblies. Siaya County was the first yesterday to pass this, and already other county assemblies are saying, they're indicating that they're going to have their conversation and debates around this in coming days. Now, something curious has happened in the last couple of days. The president was in Sagana. He met with MCAs. You also met with MCAs from ODM. And there's a whole matter of something that they've been pushing for since 2014, car grants. Curiously, this promise has been made now as we go into the BBI. Would you say that this is political inducement for them to pass the BBI? And if not, how would you explain this curious timing for this?
Well, I would say that this probably is just a coincidence. Because you know that honorable members of parliament were asking for a car grant for a long time, and it was never granted. But the time came when eventually the Parliamentary Service Commission decided to grant it, and the Remuneration Commission also approved it. So now the MCAs, so-called, as you know, would follow suit. Say, if MPs are getting it, why not MCAs? And they have been petitioning the government to give them a car grant. And finally, the president yielded when he was confronted by MCAs from central Kenya. I would say it is more of a coincidence than a planned way or a kind of a deliberate inducement of the MCAs to pass the BBI.
Well, Shimima, what would you say to many who are asking that question right now and saying how it looks to them in terms of the BBI amendment bill now this bill going forward and this development now? What would you say to them to still their fears or still any kind of anxiety that, yes, this is a way to get them to do what is necessary to pass the BBI?
I don't think that any MCA would feel obligated to pass BBI merely because the government has granted a car grant. I think that is really to try to underestimate the intelligence of the members of county assemblies. I think that ultimately MCAs are going to vote for or against the BBI on the basis of their conviction. If they think it is a good document, they will pass it. If they don't think so, they will throw it out. So I think that it is far-fetched and actually an insult to the integrity and intelligence of the MCAs to suggest that they are being bribed so that they can vote for the BBI.
Mheshimiwa, I want to ask two questions. One, given that you have responsibilities and titles that are actually, let me just put it plain, there are plenty. What do you prefer to be referred to as? Because you are an AU envoy, which gives the title of excellency. You are a former prime minister, so you are right honorable. How would you like to be referred to?
Well, I'll just try to be referred to as Raila Odinga. Those other titles don't really add much to me. What do you want?
All right. Let me then ask the question, Raila Odinga. I want to understand why it is you got into politics. What it is that you had in mind, and what changes you thought you would bring into the whole realm of politics. And of course, there'll be the question of how far are you from the goal that you had set out to achieve in the first place?
Well, I was not invited into politics. And I doubt that many people get invited to politics. But you see, I was born in a political family. And I grew up at a time when this country was going through very difficult times. That was the tail end of the colonialism. And as you know, that colonial government was a very cruel and oppressive system. That was, by the time I was growing up, was the time of the state of emergency, when there were a lot of restrictions on movement of the people throughout the country. And they also had those you call the Calabar, the racial discrimination in this country. Most senior positions in government were occupied by the white people, who had really little respect for the black people, To them, you're just a bloody African. And our people decided to resist this demeaning kind of treatment. And my father was very much at the center of it. He would convene meetings in our house. They'll be talking about the alien and cruel rule of the white man, how the black man was being mistreated, and why there was need for resistance by our people. So that is how the background to which I grew up. Then my father became a member of parliament and spearheaded the process of release of political detainees, and then eventually became minister and eventually a vice president. But I was, in my own right, engaged in a number of other activities. Like I was the Secretary General of the Federation of Kenyan Students in Europe. That is a federation that brought all Kenyan students studying in different parts of Europe, both Western Europe and Eastern Europe. In that capacity, I traveled across the length and the breadth of the European continent, and so what the student movement were doing, and what international solidarity was about, in order to liberate the people who were struggling for independence. So I, therefore, politics has been part and parcel of my life, right from the youth up to where I am today.
What did you hope to do, and how did you hope to achieve it?
I just hope to make a contribution to improving the conditions of life in our society. My desire is to live a better country, society than the one that I lived in. That is really my intention. And that is what has been impelling me. Like when I came back here, that was the era of the single party dictatorship, where people were being arrested, tortured, and sent to detention without trial. And we said this must come to an end. That, of course, has cost me quite a bit of suffering, as you know. I've been to jail 3 times without trial, but we've continued, and I'm happy that the effort that we made it possible for us to repeal the Section 2A and allow for formation of other political parties. Today, people take it for granted that you can form a political party. They're forgetting that, in fact, in the past, it was a crime to even imagine to try to form a political party. And that now, today, somebody can stand up and talk openly, insult the president without fear that he can be arrested and taken to prison. That is what democracy is all about. And I'm happy that I've made my little contribution to the process of democratization of our society.
Raila Odinga, even as you talk about this, it reminds me of several occasions where those who support you greatly, you've said, for the sake of moving the country forward, let us make sure that we engage in peace. Most recently, we have seen, even as temperatures hot up towards next year, we've seen a lot of inflammatory things being said. We saw what happened last weekend, this week actually, this past week, in terms of inflammatory remarks, things degenerating. How will you rally those who support you, your teams, to keep the peace going towards this new, with all that we see now, the BBI, elections next year? How will you make sure in your own way that those who support or that those who follow you will keep the peace?
I have always told my people to conduct themselves with decorum and be tolerant to the other people all the time. This has been all my plea, that if we have got a case that we are prosecuting, we should try to convince the people to understand it and see it our way by reasoning out rather than using any form of violence. You want to see, for example, this last weekend when we were, on Monday actually, when we were in Kisumu, and I saw members of parliament fighting on a stage. They also, of course, the one who was aggressed and there was the aggressor. Mm-hmm. But when I stood up to speak, I told him that, look, one of the cardinal principles of democracy, and one English politician put it very well, that I may not agree with what you have to say, but I shall defend unto death your right to say it. So you allow somebody to say whatever he's saying, and then your time comes to respond, and then you will be able to respond effectively. You see, but if you become intolerant, you don't want to even allow somebody to say what you want to say, then you're not practicing democracy. So we need to create a tolerant society where we allow people to come up with opposing views. And then we try to reason out and convince them to see things our own way. That is democracy. That's practiced in modern democracies in the world.
Where do you strike the balance or draw the line between letting somebody express themselves and expressing themselves democratically and letting somebody go on and utter inflammatory remarks? We've seen this happen in very many occasions where somebody would stand up and they would speak and what they're saying is completely inflammatory. But you as the leader, you're there and you're there trying to strike the balance between allowing them to speak but at the same time calling them out for when they go astray. It has happened, for example, in Kisumu. You and the deputy president were sitting there as the senior-most leaders in the country as this happened. We have seen others in public rallies, in political rallies, where politicians who are speaking just before you speak would come and say things that are not palatable, so to speak. Where would you draw the line between allowing them to speak and stopping them in their tracks?
You know, I don't understand what you referred to as inflammatory remarks. Like, see, when I was there in Kisumu, Honorable Simbarati only said that, look, Mr. Deputy President, during the clashes of 207, 208, some of our people were killed in your area, and you owe these people an apology. I'm sure that given opportunity, the Deputy President is capable of responding. And I'm sure that he was going to respond very effectively to that allegation or question. What we need to do is just be tolerant. Like if somebody says something like that to me, I would not feel insulted. Mm-hmm. I would not even be impatient. I would wait and I would get a chance to respond to him or her. That is basically the fundamental of democracy. But if you allow that kind of a charge or allegation to stand, then it poisons the minds of other people. So we must just allow people to make some whatever allegations they want to make, and allow other people also a chance to respond to what is being said.
Okay.
My view is that there are people who are feeling like Simbarati is feeling down there. And I don't think that you help the situation by glossing over it. You see, it's the best thing to settle issues, all scores, is just discuss them and put them to rest. That will be my view.
Let's then talk about something that has been said about your person. We saw recently several members of Parliament from the Mount Kenya region writing a letter to the president. And in that letter, They said that you are unsellable in their region, thanks in part to the demonization of Raila Odinga by President Uhuru Kenyatta in the past. Why do you think this is so?
That is their view, that I'm unsellable in the central Kenya region. But first, I don't share that view. But the thing is that nobody have asked them to market me. I'm not trying to market myself in central Kenya because I'm not campaigning. I'm basically talking about BBI in central Kenya as Raila Odinga. And I think I have a democratic right to go to every part of this country to market BBI. And central Kenya is part of Kenya. I think that is really very undemocratic. And President Uhuru Kenyatta has not tried to market me in central Kenya. So those people are addressing a completely different partisan agenda. They themselves are the ones who have an issue with me. They have not asked the people of central Kenya. They don't speak on behalf of the people of central Kenya. If the people of central Kenya don't want to listen to Raila Odinga, they will tell me in my face. But you need to know that I've been to central Kenya so many times before. Even as late as 2 months ago, I was in Kisumu for a function, and I was very well received in central Kenya. I've never been accompanied by those people. I didn't even invite them to accompany me. I have other friends in central Kenya who can and will be able to come with me. So I think those people are playing partisan politics, full stop.
Well, Odinga, I want to talk about the BBI, and I want to ask a question that in and of itself may be simplistic. How does the BBI translate into ensuring that, for example, someone who earns 10,000 or 20,000 shillings a month is able to live well with that amount of money that they earn?
You see, BBI is basically laying the foundation for a transformation of our country. BBI itself is not going to create wealth. Wealth will be created differently. What we're trying to do is trying to create an enabling environment for integration of our society. As you know, you can be having, for example, a very rich society like the United States. But look at the disparities that exist in the United States. You've got the very rich people in the society who have people like Bill Gates, people like the Fords, the Rockefellers, and so on. But then you've got those who live in the slums in the United States who basically struggle to put a bread on the table. So there's such a big disparity. BBI is talking about equitable distribution of wealth in our society. That itself will ensure that the gap is somehow bridged, like happens in Scandinavian countries and so on. So, second, BBI is talking about cohesion, national cohesion, and creating national ethos, so that we can live in accordance with our national dream. You see, may we live in unity, peace, and liberty, and plenty be found within our borders. That's the Kenyan dream. But it has not been realized. We still have a very unequal society, a very polarized society. Ethnicity is a big issue in this country. If people are going for an interview, for a job, it is their names that determine whether they are going to be employed or not. Because if you come before a panel that is already very biased, if you say, oh, I'm Kamau, or I'm Onyango, or I'm Arab, so and so, Wanyama, Mutua, Salim. Already the mindset. People have already made a decision. This is not for you. This we want to change, and that's why we're talking about Utu in the BBI, like what Mwalimu Nyerere did in Tanzania by creating Utanzania rather than a member of this society, this community, this tribe, and so on and so forth. So BBI, therefore, will create an enabling environment for wealth creation and integration in our society.
There are so many things that make up your ethos about this country, Raila Odinga, and then moving forward. Are you going to run for president in 2022?
That question has been put to me a million times.
Excellence, this is now 1,000,001.
Yes. And my answer has been standard. I am not talking about 2022 now, and I will not talk until after we have passed the BBI.
Okay, so can we look a few years before this then and ask, I mean, you had wanted to be president before, and there were certain things that you were bringing to the table. What would you have done differently? And what gains do you think would have been gotten had you been president in 2013, in 2017? What do you think you would have done differently?
See, first, take a journey down the memory lane and go back to 2003. We came into government and we ended Kanu's over 30 years of, you can call it misrule. When we came into government, the economy was almost at a standstill. The growth was almost negative. The revenue collection was so low. The expenditures were very high. The government was basically depending on donor handouts. And we sat down and we came up with a program to revamp the economy. In our campaign manifesto, we had promised a free primary education. Those who were in government were saying that was a utopia. It was not possible to introduce free primary education. Against this background of economic slump, we introduced free primary education. And then we introduced measures that revamped the economy. Even revenue collection shot up from 200 billion to 500 billion to 700 billion to over 1 trillion. And then the expenditure also went down. And therefore, we were able to finance all our development programs through domestic revenue without even having to borrow. Only 5% of our development program was coming from the donors. The growth shot up 3%, 5%, eventually 7%. We wanted to take it to double-digit growth. Then came 2007, 2008 crisis. After that, we formed a grand coalition government where we shared government 50-50 with President Kibaki. As a Prime Minister, I was in charge of coordination and supervision of the government activities. You know, all the government ministries and departments were answerable to me. And everybody knows what we were able to do under the Grand Coalition government. So I'm not a newcomer, therefore, and I know what is ailing this country. I know what is wrong, what needs to be done. I know where the right buttons are to press. And I am sure it is possible to attain a double-digit growth of this economy. And if I were able to do it in 2013, we will attained it by 2015, and we would have been able to sustain it for 10 years. And that is how we can achieve a Vision 2030.
Honorable Odinga, the action that you took with the president at the steps of Harambee House in 2018 was commendable. It has even been noted worldwide, the handshake. And this then has led you to have positive relations with the government. We've spoken even with leaders who are in the National Assembly and the Senate, who are members of ODM and other parties within NASA. And they say temperatures calmed down, and now we've been able to engage with the government in a very productive way. Could you maybe show us or point to us some of the things that you have been able to achieve with this handshake for the government, or even in the advisory role, saying this is a direction that we can take, and things that we can say, because of the direct intervention of I, Raila Odinga, and my members of ODM and others, we have been able to see the government steering to this direction?
First, let's look at the background to that handshake. Some people never understood, and they were saying that a handshake was not necessary. You remember that after the elections, we went to the Supreme Court. And when the Supreme Court saw the evidence we had produced, they nullified the presidential elections and directed a repeat. And then we told the IEBC to make some rectifications of the structure and the system they had, which was responsible for the rigging that was exposed. When they refused, we boycotted. And then, of course, there was the October 26th sham exercise. And that was followed by the swearing in at Kasarani. And then, of course, remember, we came up with a positive action. We called people to resist movement, boycotting certain products, and so on. And after that, we went to Uhuru Park. And thereafter, now our people said, let us now take all the portraits of the president and burn them and declare our sovereignty and begin to collect taxes and conduct our affairs. Then, of course, my feeling then was that that would take Kenya to Somalia. And then, on the other hand, the other people, the president's supporters, told him, what has happened is treason. Let's arrest Raila, charge him in prison, just go and hang him. And end of the story. He also felt that that would not solve the problem. Then eventually, this is how we began to talk. And when we talked for a long time, we agreed to identify the problems which has brought us to where we are and come up with the concrete solutions to those problems. And that is what was the background to the handshake. And when we did the handshake, of course, the political temperatures went down and an environment was created which now enabled the government to do its own work. At the same time, we set up this task force to go around the country and ask the people their views about those 9 points which we had identified as the causative factors to the Kenyan problem. So the task force went around the country quietly. I see some people are saying it is because of the handshake that the government stopped work. I don't see how a task force going around the country would stop the government from working. The government has had opportunity to work and to do its work to the people of Kenya. And the handshake has not in any way interfered with the work of government. But what has happened is that as the president has been working, and the other half of the government has been busy undermining what the president is doing. That is the cause of the problem that we're having today. We have been pointing out, in the past I used to talk to the government through the media.
Yep.
when we discussed, we detected something that was happening, I would carry out investigations, and then I would convene a press conference and I would expose it, because I'm not in parliament. But after the handshake, I would inform the president that this is happening. It's happening. Like the issue of Aurora and Kimarer, I mentioned. You remember, I started with Itari Dam. I mentioned that something's wrong with the Itari Dam. I went all the way to Kericho, I had a meeting with the elders, and I said something is wrong here. Because that was a time when I was still in the opposition. But before the handshake, when we now had the handshake, I'm still in the opposition, but now I can take a phone and call the president and tell him that, Mr. President, this and this and this is happening. And like Kimarel and Aror, I mentioned this to the president. And I'm happy that action were taken. But you remember, his deputy was saying that it was not 21 billion, it was only 7 billion. As if 7 billion is a pocket change.
Yeah.
7 billion still is a lot of money if it was stolen. But so what I'm trying to say is that we have continued to play a role, and my members of parliament have continued to effectively play their role even in parliament. I've seen, for example, some statement being made that, ODM is now part of government because some members of ODM are now chairing committees of parliament. See, parliament as an institution has a role to oversight the executive. That is it's not only the work of the members of the ruling party. In fact, it's more the members of the opposition. And these committees are meant to oversight the government. So therefore, there should not be a monopoly only of the ruling party. Even members of the opposition have a right to chair some of those oversight committees, because oversighting is the role of parliament as an institution.
So are you still in the opposition? Would you say that you are still leader of the opposition in this country?
I am in the opposition. I'm in the opposition, and ODM is the biggest opposition party in this country. There's no question about that.
You have recently been talking about, the promises and pledges that were made by Jubilee during campaigns and what has not been fulfilled. Are you also having these conversations with the president and reminding him, look, you promised laptops, you haven't delivered on the laptops? And has he explained to you some of the challenges that have made him not be able to deliver on some of these promises that you yourself are talking about in public?
So what I've been doing is basically, because these people have been making wider allegations against us, and they've been talking about this hustler movement. That is what I've been trying to respond to, because I've been telling the deputy president, what you're talking about is not new. When you are campaigning, and you promised the people of Kenya that you are going to introduce laptops in schools within 6 months. What happened to that story? Now the children you promised laptops in 2013 are now in standard 8.
Yep.
They are going to do examination and they have not seen a laptop. Now you are telling them about wheelbarrows before you have delivered the laptop. Yeah. So this is what I've been doing an analogy. I've been responding to the deputy president. I've not been criticizing Jubilee generally as a government.
But I would take the view, Raila Odinga, that you have presented a completely new role for the opposition. It's like more of a friendly partner to the government than the opposition, because as far as the traditional opposition, as we know it, is someone who does precisely that, points out the things that the government ought to do and they're not doing. How then would you say ODM right now is playing that role of pointing out the things that the government ought to do and they're not doing?
The ODM, there are two ODMs. There's the National Party, and then there is a parliamentary party. You see, that's how even you go to the UK, the Labour Party functions that way. You go to the US, Democratic Party, even the Republicans. When they're in Parliament, there's the parliamentary party. And the parliamentary party is led by the leader right now of the minority, both in the Senate and in the National Assembly. And they have their work cut out. They know exactly what to do to the government. But you need to understand the difference between a presidential system of government and a parliamentary system of government. In a parliamentary system of government, you have got a divide, the government side benches and the opposition benches. It's adversarial. In a presidential system, because in a parliamentary system, the executive is also in the House. You've got cabinet ministers sitting in the House and they are asked questions by the opposition and they answer. In a presidential system, the legislature is independent of the executive. So ministers do not sit in parliament. They are not there to be asked questions. There are only parliamentary committees which can summon the ministers to go and appear and answer questions. And that is the responsibility of both opposition and the ruling party. And that's why each committee is shared. Sometimes the ruling party has got majority, and sometimes the opposition has got majority, like the watchdog committees, like the Public Accounts and Public Investment Committee.
Yeah.
The opposition should have a majority and should chair. The parliament is an oversight institution, oversight the government. So that is what people don't understand. People still expect parliament to operate the way we used to operate when we have had a hybrid system, where you had a prime minister in parliament asking questions, ministers were members of parliament. That's not. But that is what BBI is proposing. BBI is trying to propose a return to a hybrid system. Because now, all over the world, it has been accepted that parliamentary systems are more accountable than presidential systems. Because the government is available in the House to answer questions. Members can ask the ministers questions and they have to answer there and there. The Prime Minister must come to Parliament and answer questions of members of Parliament.
Yep.
Remember, I used to have the Prime Minister's Hour every Wednesday, where I would make a statement on the current issues, and then I would be there to answer questions of all members of Parliament. So this is what we're proposing, and there have been allegations that what we're proposing is more expensive, jobs for the boys and so on. Nothing could be further from the truth, because we are bringing the executive in the House, and ministers are going to be members of Parliament. So their main salary is going to be that of as MPs. They will only be getting additional allowances for the executive work that they perform as ministers. At the moment, you have to employ all the ministers from outside of Parliament. You pay them a salary, allowances, and everything. So what we are running right now is more expensive than what is being proposed by the BBI.
Would you also say that the new structure that is being proposed then is going to give more responsibilities, the check and balance to Parliament, as opposed to what we've seen so far, because there have been very many accusations on the part of the National Assembly and the Senate on not checking the executive sufficiently. For example, when it comes to budget policy statement is taken to the National Assembly, it's discussed, there are questions that are raised, but it's still passed by the National Assembly. And those checks seem not to be strong enough to rein in on a national treasury that seems to be running amok and increasing a budget and increasing borrowing. Would then the BBI be able to solve that?
Yeah, because the executive is going to be part of Parliament. The minister will be taken to task by the members of Parliament. Remember that now, even the budget statement, the minister is given a chair somewhere there, almost like it's in Parliament, but it's not in Parliament.
Yeah.
And he will not answer questions of members of Parliament. But in the parliamentary system, the minister has to answer questions. But before the budget day, most of the budgetary proposals will have been discussed and agreed on before the minister comes now with that magical briefcase carrying the budget statement. So we were able to contain a number of issues at that time. So my view is that this system we're trying to introduce is going to be more accountable and more answerable to the people than what we currently have.
Okay, so currently...
You see, right now, the ministers are technocrats. They're not politicians. So what you have in government is two layers of bureaucrats. Some are permanent secretary, and then others are called cabinet secretaries. And you go with them to public functions, they tell you that they cannot make a statement because they are not allowed to make political statements. Governance is politics. You see, it's a political government. That's why it is elected. But if you have only two politicians in the government, something is terribly wrong. That you have only the president and his deputy who can talk politics. The ministers are all just bureaucrats. Then who answers? Who speaks on behalf of the government? It is not right.
Currently, Raila Odinga, you sit in this position as AU Special Envoy, High Representative for Infrastructure Development in Africa, welcomed by the AU Chair, a decision that was put forth by the President. What exactly does this position require you to do?
I am basically an advisor to the AU on infrastructure development issues. Sometimes I can act also as a catalyst on the issues of infrastructure. So I attend meetings, I also convene some meetings, and also I make some recommendations to the chair of the AU. So, like, you know, in terms of infrastructure, AU has with several components. You've got Trans-African highways, you've got high-speed railway network, you've got fiber optic connectivity, you've got energy, you've got waterways, and you've got open skies, that is air transport. These are all areas which the AU is looking at. And this is basically aimed at promoting trade within the continent. As you know that African Free Trade Area Agreement came into effect last year, having been ratified by all the 54 member states of AU. But the biggest impediment to intra-African trade is lack of infrastructure or poor infrastructure across the continent. Africa trades very little with itself. The intra-African trade stands right now at 15%, whereas the intra-European trade is 70%. Asia, it is 50%. Even in Latin America, it is 25%. So the AU wants to increase the intra-African trade, and that's why the infrastructure becomes an imperative. We have got the trans-African highways, for example, the Cape to Cairo, the Tunis to Cape, the Dakar to Djibouti, Dakar to Lagos, Lagos to Mombasa. Then there is the railway lines like Beira to Walvis Bay, or the other one to Wambo. You've got the one from Lamu Port to South Sudan, Bangui up to Kribi in Cameroon, and then Lamu to Addis to Djibouti, and so on and so forth. So then you've got fiber optic networks to connect the entire continent. Then you've got the energy. And here we're looking at high grant funds, INGA, in the DRC, which we are trying to develop to generate up to 100,000 megawatts of power, and then transporting it to different parts of the continent. So I have my hands full. Right now, my obsession is to try to create funding, the source of funding, because infrastructure development, as you know, is capital intensive.
Yeah.
And we are trying to create Africa Infrastructure Fund, which will enable some of these countries to borrow from. So we're trying to see, we are working with fund managers of different funds, sovereign funds, retirement benefit funds, insurance funds, and so on and so forth, with different countries to pull together to create a big fund that can be used to construct some of these infrastructure projects.
Clearly, you have your hands full, Raila Odinga. I mean, with all that's happening there, and the push for better governance in this country, and also push for better governance across the continent, you've got your hands full, and we thank you very much for sparing some of that time to speak to us this morning. We've been speaking to Raila Odinga. We don't even need to introduce him any further. Raila Odinga is a national leader in the Republic of Kenya and also a leader in Africa. Asante sana Mheshimiwa for speaking to us, and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As we let you go, sir, we'd like you to just to give one final message to the people of Kenya. What is it that you would like them to know about Raila and Raila's thinking right now for the Republic?
I would like my people of Kenya to understand that I am actuated by a desire to see Kenya achieve the Kenyan dream, which was coined by the founding fathers of our nation. A country that is God-fearing, a country that is united, where plenty is found within its borders. I know that it is achievable, it's attainable. If we put our head together as a people of Kenya, we can realize the Kenyan dream. And that is what I want to be remembered for by future generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is KTN Home, Spice FM, and online. We've been having an interview with Raila Odinga. The conversation continues. Keep it right here.
Spice up your life. Spice FM. Nyeri.
Okay,
Traffic.
so looking at what's going on the road, still the heavy build-up on Kiambu Road today and trying to join with the Thika Superhighway. It is taking some time today. Chock-a-blocked is what we're seeing, bumper to bumper, everywhere you look. Unfortunately, there are no side roads here, so you have to stick on this main highway. The service lanes on Thika Road are proving a little bit better to be able to deal with this morning. Let's also look at Mombasa Road as you leave the Siokima SGR and then headed out towards General Motors. That's slow today and still building up of traffic all the way towards Bellevue. So traffic in all areas as we're looking at it today. Ngong Road also moving very slowly all the way from Ngong Town today. Langata Road also slowly as you get to the T-Mall roundabout. So we're still dealing with heavy traffic in different parts of the city. Let's look at it in a short while. Spice FM KE. Tell us what you will see and where you might be stuck or find an alternate route. Eastern Southern bypasses still up for use. Text us as well on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation
It
Room,
is 13
the
minutes
only
after
way to
8.
start your...
Right after that interview with Raila Odinga, many comments have come in. People would have wanted to hear some more questions. Yes, we would have wanted to have more time with him. So what are people saying?
Okay, so quite a lot here. A question from Johanna was that ask the former PM why we must have these positions of Prime Minister and the two deputies in the BBI who are appointed by the president. Yet we want to remove power from the presidency of winner takes all. That's it. And then Ochieng Samuel, it seems Kenya has money to waste for paying a prime minister and his two deputies, yet they can't settle the health workers, teachers, and fighting corruption. Secondly, is this BBI really a priority, yet other countries are busy trying so hard to get vaccines while Kenya is watching its people dying of the deadly virus? I really question the integrity of leaders. Other questions coming in here, or rather comments. Why, after the handshake, they have not worked on the IEBC? Isn't that hypocrisy? Electoral justice was the number one issue after the 2017 election, but still to date, nothing has been done about it. Looking at what he has said about the doctor's strike and what he's saying about the MCA car grants, it looks as though there is a speaking out of both sides of the mouth. How can he say MCAs need car grants, but doctors should be level-headed when demanding for their own pay rise? It's a question that seems to still have an issue here. Is it a coincidence that they are being given car grants now? This is pathetic. We all know it's more of a bribe. Okay, so questions there. I mean, quite a number.
The number of questions that you even asked, we had a list, an entire full scope of questions, double-sided, and you're not able really to finish them. But we were able to get some answers out of him, especially on the issue of the car grants. In my opinion, he went around it. He basically just went around and said, it's not a bribe, it's just a coincidence. And he repeated the word coincidence more than once. It's just coincidental that this is the time when the president is acceding to this, or the government is acceding to this request by the MCAs, but there's justification because members of parliament get it. So there's justification for it. And did he answer that question in a way that then, even when you asked him, how would you tell people who feel that this is direct inducement?
I mean, no. Obviously, we didn't get an answer to that because we can't run away from the.
Actually, we did get an answer.
We can't. Well, not an answer directly to that question. We can't run away from the fact
What
that
answer did you deduce
there are very many
from the answer
people
he gave?
who feel that this is not a coincidence that it happened in the manner in which it did.
You see, whenever I am talking about a politician, I take AJP Taylor's perspective. I judge the politician on their skills and their ability to achieve their political goals. Did he talk about it? Yes, he did. Did he explain what he felt was the rationale for it? He did. Did he answer the question that we asked? Yes, he did. You see, if you are asking him to give you his opinion, that is what we got, his opinion. Are we satisfied with that opinion? Different question. Then the question I would ask is, so what exactly did we expect him to tell us? Because if there's disappointment, then there was expectation. What did we expect to hear or to be told? How much more did we anticipate we would be told?
Him to basically respond to this and say, no, it is not a bribe. It has been work in progress. It just happens that the end of this work in progress was in Sagana. Or, no, it is not a bribe. It's a request that has been made before, and this request has now reached a point where it has been discussed. No, that's it. Oh, yes, it's a bribe.
Again, Raila Odinga is a politician. And rather experienced politician at that. You ask a direct question, he gives you what in his opinion is a direct response.
Right.
Yes. So, we may not particularly think that it is the sort of response that we would have preferred.
Right.
But so what? If I may ask the question. You see, if we were talking to a ranking officer who represents a faith, then we would be talking a different language. You know why? The foundation of that person's position is based on a completely different ethos. And that is the truth of the matter. So, when we ask a question, we can say, but according to, there's even a reference point. There'll be a manual of operation. All these faiths have a manual of operation. Call it a Bible. Call it the Bhagavad Gita. Call it the Quran. It's a manual of operation. You can refer to it. This manual of operation that we refer to when we're talking to politicians, which one is it?
Law.
Precisely. So, all I'm saying is, whenever I have a discussion, or there's a discussion about a politician, and I am part and parcel of it, I never lose sight of the fact that I am talking to a politician.
Okay. With regards to the headline in the Standard today, Inside States plan to tempt politicians, and what we've seen happening, political rhetoric rising and going certain direction, and especially now with regards to what happened in Kisumu on Monday, right? He said, look, everybody has a right to express an opinion. What those MPs were doing, they were expressing their opinion. He seemed to take issue with one of the MPs for not allowing his colleague to finish expressing his opinion, despite him having been allowed to express his own opinion. And he says, you see, that's it. Let somebody speak and speak until they finish. Then you can come and respond. It's not like Simba Arati was raising issues that are not, resonating on the ground. When he says that the people of Kisii who are living in Rift Valley and were affected by the post-election violence and they're here, when they hear you speak, they expect to hear some sort of apology for what happened. Okay? So he said, let him speak, let the Deputy President respond to that.
He put it well. He said the Deputy President is very able to respond to it.
Yes.
He's very able.
I have a problem with that, though. I still have a problem with that. I think because it's not just him. We've seen also Babu Owino speaking in other public fora. Video clips are shared online on what he says. And it's in the presence of Raila. So it's not just about what you're saying and expressing your opinion, but there's also how you say it. If you stand up and say things and you're still, your leader does not even call you on the side later, okay, speak there, but then later call the person on the side and tell them, there's a better way of expressing this, which does not A, inflame, B, insult, 3, offend. And coach the person going forward. If they don't seem to be hearing you, then you take action on them and show them, this is how you behave, my friend.
Well, see, the thing is, Eric, that would work in a situation where the intent was otherwise. But it was very clear that the intent was to rile up some kind of negative emotion. There are very, very many other opportunities to discuss that particular issue. Do you think that it was off the top of his head when he took the podium and took the microphone? Do you think it was off the top of his head? Obviously not. It was
You
something.
don't think so?
Like, let me.
You don't think it was spontaneous?
You don't think it was spontaneous?
Now that I'm here, let me now say, since you're here, let's ask you once again to apologize for the atrocities that were committed in 2007. While I'm here? No. While I'm just, by the way.
Premeditated.
Oh, come on. Now that I'm here, by the way, let me just ask you. We actually need an apology from you. And now that I have this microphone, I just remembered it would be great to ask you to make that apology now.
Okay.
I don't think
you don't think it was spontaneous. Do you think
the
that even if
intent
it
of
was...
him coming out to stand there were 1,000 other things that he could have said.
Yeah.
But the intent at that point was clear that it was to rile up emotion. He could have said very many other things. There were many other opportunities for him to demand an apology, right? Now, the silence that you talk about, they continue to have an issue with, also, it could be that, okay, well, this is something that I also want to know. Why has an apology not been issued? Let's hear this apology. Or let's hear the reasoning why this apology has not been made. Gives credence to the reason as to why he didn't stop him and say, okay, we don't need this. He also wants to hear the apology. So it wasn't spontaneous. So you also have to ask yourself, for you to come and ask somebody to be careful about the way in which they speak.
Yeah.
The intention of that statement that they made was not blameless.
In the run-up to the 2017 election, some debates had been arranged. And in one of those debates, I recall when Raila Odinga was asked a question similar to the one that we're talking about here, with regards to the way he had been referred to by our president, Uhuru Kenyatta. The word that he used was Mugoroki, okay? And he was smiling and laughing and said, look, there are things politicians say and you must understand what they're saying. He says, Uhuru Kenyatta knows very well I'm not mad. He knows very, very well I'm not mad. I also know very, very well he's not certain things I say. But in the course of political banter and discourse, there are things we say. We are politicians. You must understand that when we speak, you must please focus. This is political speak. And that's why, now my interpretation of it, we often get puzzled that, but these people seem to be at each other's throats, and then you find them chatting very normally and having a chat immediately after what appears to be a very heated discussion. 1. 2, the issue of coincidence in politics. I would prefer to use the word opportunity. How many opportunities do you have when you have Raila Odinga, Uhuru, and Dr. William Ruto in the same place? And at a forum where the population is massive.
And attentive.
It's a captive audience. And in a region that we have seen, we the media have also presented as being fairly polarized. One side versus not one side and another, but one side versus another. Now you tell me, anyone who considers themselves to be a politician of any repute whatsoever, do you really think they're going to let this opportunity just go by? Simba Arati is MP in Nairobi, but his ancestors came from Gusii land. Is he going to miss an opportunity to let the people of Gusii know that their son, Simba Arati, is indeed Simba?
He's a Simba.
You think he's going to miss that opportunity?
Not
Such
a
an
rat.
opportunity. How often do such opportunities come about?
Which is why I'm telling you that for you to go and now pull somebody aside and say, come on now, you need to behave in a certain manner. They both know the reason why he was doing it.
And that's why you have the question of where do you draw a line? You know, saying that let people speak, let them speak whatever language they want to choose, because I mean it's their choice of that language. But when I stand, I'm going to remind them to be peaceful and calm. Remember the same thing you say. By the time you're standing to tell them, people, and whenever we speak, we should always remember to, respect one another, to use palatable language. But the message has already been passed.
Yes.
And so in the end of the day, the negative messaging has already permeated into the community. It's there.
You see, political intent is not often carried in political speech. If anything, if the intent and the activities that follow seem to be negative, the speech will be in complete opposition to what you have witnessed.
Right.
It has no bearing whatsoever on the reality of the intent. Yeah. There is no politician who's worth his weight in salt who doesn't understand that your public image must be perfect. Mm-hmm. And it must be literally squeaky clean, or at least approximating it, if you can't quite get to this absolute squeaky clean. So, again, I go back to when you are talking to a politician, please differentiate and understand that when you ask a question, understand what you are being told. More importantly, understand what you're not being told.
Okay. This other question. Why is it that, what benefit does Raila deduce from not openly declaring that he wants to vie next year?
He didn't say he's not. He said he's just not talking about it
As
until after.
Not declaring that he wants to vie.
There is a certain tool in literature, a stylistic device, as we call it in literature, that works wonders. And it's even carried on to moving literature, what we call movies. It's called suspense.
You really think that folks are being held in suspense now that he said he's not going to talk about it?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I'm guessing.
You see, there's one thing to know or think that you know, there's another thing to hear it.
Okay.
Because when you hear it, we know there's going to be a race, and at some point it must start. But it's when we hear that gun go off that we know it has really started. That's really what it is. We know the race is going on. We even know the competitors. We even have a clear idea of the race they're going to run. But until they're lined up and the gun goes off, suspense.
Okay, so for now, let's just say that people are being held in neck-breaking suspense and have no idea what is really going to happen. Okay, we can say that. That's fine.
Neck-breaking?
Well, I mean, sure.
Which is that's what I said, isn't it?
Yeah. So let's just assume. Let's just assume that it's suspense that people are being held in right now in terms of what is going to happen in the 2022 presidential race. Okay, that's fine. I still think that at the same time, we need to, all of these things that we've said, is very necessary to see past some of these things. And we know, but I would rather focus on the things that are not being said. The things that are not being said is actually what needs to grip the attention of everybody who is listening and hearing. Right? The drama, that's why they say when the dust settles is when you will see the true picture of things. So assume that all of these things that are being said now are just dust. It's political dust and really bears no importance. Who cares how big the lion is, has not been washed, looks like a rat cat, doesn't really matter. The underlying things that we need to be looking at right now and the importance of such is that there's certain things that are not working in the country and the people of Kenya need to be vested in making sure that they do work. And how do you do that? By the decisions that you make when you go to the ballot. Unfortunately, the things that grip the attention and really keep the minds of people captive when it comes to how things should be is this drama that we see. That's the dust for me. This drama that you see, who's saying what, who's not saying, who's demanding what or the other thing. Really not important. Really not important vis-a-vis what is when it comes to the decisions that you make about good leadership in the country. And the things that we complain about all the time, impunity here, corruption there, bad leadership, etc., etc. How are Kenyans making decisions on those things? How are Kenyans making decisions on those?
What's influencing that decision?
It's fun. Yes, it's fun to look at the drama, let's be honest.
So
it's interesting to look at all the dust. Right?
It'll be interesting to hear what these things are that you're saying you are not hearing being said. Okay? So you'll tell us some of those things that you are hearing not being heard, not being said. All of that combined. 8:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Time for us to take a break. Let's see the weather and also what's happening on the roads in terms of what areas are clogged up and what areas are moving smoothly. We'll be back shortly. This is the Situation Room. You can call in 0719 012 600. What is it that you heard Raila Odinga saying? What is it that you did not hear Raila Odinga saying, but you clearly heard him not saying them? Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
When it comes to bridging the information gap to help strengthen the agricultural sector in our country, you can always rely on Farm Kenya to be the glue holding everything together. And now, courtesy of the partnership with Farmster, things couldn't be better. Introducing Farm Kenya platform, and it goes like this. Our SMS service will help farmers upload and publish their products without smartphones, while the Farm Kenya app will allow buyers locate, purchase from, and engage the farmers directly. So if you're a farmer, send a free SMS to 40446 and connect with buyers free for life. That's 40446. If you're a buyer looking for local produce, download the Farm Kenya app from Google Play Store or the Apple Store for free. Remember, ukulima sio shamba pekee. Ukulima ni digital. Ukulima ni Farm Kenya platform.
Kuimarisha Kenya ni jukumu la Farm Kenya.
Brought to you by Farm Kenya and Farmster, working to secure your growth.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice.
Nairobi 28 the high today, lows of 16. Nyeri is sunny at 15, highs of 27. We'll see highs of 29 in Nakuru, 17 degrees at the moment, 13 degrees and sunny in Eldoret, going to highs of 26 and lows of 14. It's mostly sunny in Kisumu, highs of 31 and lows of 22. We'll see highs of 31 in Kakamega, sunny conditions at the moment at 19, coming down to lows of 17. It's mostly sunny in Mombasa at 26, going to highs of 33. We're also looking at sunny conditions in Malindi throughout today at 24, going to highs of 31 and lows of 26. 20 will be the low in Kampala today. It's mostly sunny at 22. And in Dar es Salaam, also sunny, 24, highs of 33 and lows of 26. It's raining in Johannesburg again this morning, 18 degrees, going to highs of 21 and lows of 16, whereas you have clear conditions in Lagos at 27, highs of 33 and lows of 26, and partly sunny conditions in Kinshasa at 24, highs of 33 and lows of 25.
Spice up your life.
Okay, so what are we looking at? Mombasa Road is looking a little bit better now than it was about 30 minutes ago. It's flowing smoothly, at least past General Motors, heading out towards Bellevue. On Jogo Road, traffic is moving slowly to town, but it's moving. We're not at a bumper-to-bumper situation anymore. Coming off of Langata Road, as you then join Bagadi Junction, you can go that way, or going towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. There's been an accident at the junction of General Mathenge and Peponi Road today. Expect some delays. We're going to see that today coming out of Westlands because of that accident. All right, we'll take a look in a short while and see how this may have changed. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
25 minutes to 9 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. What did you hear from Raila Odinga? What did you not hear from Raila Odinga? But it was loud. That's what you were saying, Ndu. Sometimes also concentrate on what is not being said.
It's not being said. I
And
mean,
what are these things that are not being said, but they're loud?
well, I mean, for example, still there's interest. It would appear that there's still interest from Raila Odinga to be part of government, whether it is at the very top seat or making a case for the fact that this country needs to be better, and still right there in the throes of all of this. If you're not interested in being in leadership, we probably wouldn't hear it so loudly coming from him. And saying that I'm not going to talk about it doesn't necessarily mean that he's not going to put his name out there for contention. But if you look at the other side of it, he wouldn't be so involved if he wasn't interested for one. Talking about the fact
So he still wants to have some presence in shaping.
Absolutely.
Which also comes into what he said. I want to leave behind a God-fearing country, a united Kenya, a country that has plenty within its borders.
Yeah, and I want to leave behind as whom? You're not going to want to leave behind such a legacy sitting in your house.
You want your name to be written like
You're
that.
going to
Alongside
want to be,
that,
you're going to want to be part of the shaping.
Yeah, who
How are you part of
contributed to
exactly?
this?
How are you going to be able to shape if you're sitting on the periphery? Obviously, you need to be right there in the center of the mix of things.
But actually, when you say at the periphery, being involved in issues of government doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in government. You see, if you look at the structure of our political setup, even those in the opposition are part of that system. In this sense,
Yes.
the opposition is what helps us understand and bring straight or shed light in areas that ordinarily light wouldn't be shed on. So in this country, remember, we still speak with glowing admiration for people who have fought for the various freedoms we have had over time. Starting with independence, second liberation, third whatever liberation we're speaking of. But those are not people who were in government, not necessarily. No. They may have been at some point, but at that
They
point...
were in national leadership, though.
That's
Thank
what
you.
I'm saying.
They were not at sitting back at home.
Yeah, you're not
and
in your
getting
house.
And you do not want to be somebody in national leadership at tier 4.
No.
You want to be in tier 1. Let's hear from Jimmy in Malindi. Jimmy, good morning.
Good morning, too.
How are you today?
I thank God. I thank God for everything,
Right.
but I'm a little bit confused.
Why?
Yeah. With just the statement that I've been hearing from the former Prime Minister,
Okay.
there are some things which I expected. There are some questions and some reasoning that I expected from him. First, I would like to ask, he's in charge of infrastructure. He's a diplomat
Yeah.
in the Africa infrastructure, head of infrastructure. And I really wonder, do diplomats involve themselves in campaign and political issues in the country?
In this particular position,
Yes.
the question would be, does this particular position or responsibility
Yes.
bar him? And I would,
Yes,
I
because
would guess not.
it doesn't allow.
No, I don't.
It doesn't prevent him.
It doesn't prevent him.
Okay. That's why I was very worried when I saw him in Matuga.
Yeah.
But anyway, let me go to the point.
Okay.
The Constitution of Kenya clearly says in number 94, straight to the number, in bold black, that the sovereign power is with the people. It has been invested by electing. I'm just narrating it from my mind, what I read, just explaining it.
Yep.
So I may not use the right words, but it is how it is said. This through voting, constitutionally, we have given this power to the members of parliament.
To our leaders
And
to
members of
exercise it
parliament,
on our behalf.
Yes, in our behalf, but following the interest of the nation and representing the will of the people.
That's true.
And so the parliament is supposed to follow the will of the people. This 35%, 15% to 35%, now we are out of the constitution now. Now I'm in my point. This 15% to 35%, if this is the will of the people, Does it require a referendum? Because what they are measuring their talk is the 15% will be 35%. It will come to the county. But that is just something that the parliament can just stand and say, we pass 15% to 35%, and the president will pass it through.
Yeah, but if you want to amend that part of the constitution, because it's actually in the constitution on the 15% lower mark, to amend anything that touches and affects devolution, you must go to a referendum. That's actually what the constitution says.
Okay.
What you could argue is that the executive and the treasury and even parliament can basically just increase this budget, but it doesn't have to.
Yes.
The ceiling is 30. I mean, the lower ceiling is 35. It can be anything. It can even be 95 if they wanted to.
Thank you. That is what I was saying.
Okay.
We are not talking about amending it to 14%. That will require a referendum.
Okay.
But if the minimum is 15, then the parliament can just pass it and make it 35. Because parliament is the one which is responsible to amend the constitution.
Hear you, Mike.
You see, and no other body.
Various sides to the argument. Thank you, Jimmy. Let's hear from Mike,
Just a
who's in
moment.
Kisumu.
Finish.
Finish. Okay, yes, go ahead.
So to finish this, so we don't need a referendum to pass to 35%, but we need a referendum to acquire positions for people. In which way? To put the prime minister and his deputy to divide if there is one member of parliament in this constituency, in this county there is 10 members or 3 members of parliament. So all this they fight for this position. So for them not to fight, so we allow them to have 15 positions in that.
Jimmy, you seem to have an issue here. What is the issue?
The issue is that the BBI is all about looking for positions for different people in the constituencies at different counties.
All right. Okay. Let's say that is what it is. And what is your issue with that?
My issue is that there are a lot of people suffering, and there are main issues pertaining the economy of the country. We cannot start looking for positions at this time. That's the end of my argument.
All right. Thank you very much, Jimmy. Mike in Kisumu, good morning.
Hello, Eric.
Hi, Mike.
How is Undu and City Muga?
Very well, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mike.
I was listening to this conversation, and I tend to agree with City on one thing. It is our expectations that fails us. From the first caller, we always have expectations, and when things don't go the way you expected them to go, then you feel disappointed. So from my position, I will say Raila Odinga was right, both right and wrong, as per to our expectations. He was right to say, okay, this is coming out as a coincidence at this time, that we are talking about grant at this time, when the doctors are also crying for fair pay at this time. And from his statements again, when the doctors were crying for fair pay, and then he said, let's look for a better way to push the country forward. Not only we are containing this corona thing. And now when it comes to grants, then he say, yes, these MCAs need grants because the MPs got grants. So he just wanted a fair ground where the MCAs and the MPs are at a fair level playing ground.
Why now, Mike?
I don't know. That is the thing I don't, and that is why I said I agree with
Mugo on
expectations. Expectations, Yeah.
We expected the answer of why now.
And City played it very well. City said they will talk their opinion as per to the question you ask them. They will give you their opinion on how you put the question forward to them.
Okay.
But they won't know that there is a way that you want them to answer that question.
So, Mike, thank you, Mike. Have a lovely day.
Have a lovely day too.
Let's go back to Kilifi County. Magarini Malindi. Sami is there. Good morning, Sami.
Good morning, guys.
Good
How are
morning,
you?
Sammy.
Fine, thanks. How are you doing?
Very well.
Very well, thank you, Sammy.
Okay. I just wanted to add some few points on what some of my colleagues are already talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to tell us is that why is it that they are agitating for this deputy prime minister when in Uganda, Tanzania, there is no such position? We only have prime minister also. Why do they want to blow to the executive so that we pay a lot of money to these people who at the end of the day are going to be useless? Also, the 70 MPs, one man, 1 shilling, one
Sammy.
1 shilling. That's great.
Sammy,
Yes.
are you suggesting that
We've lost him. We've lost him. Hopefully, Sammy, please call back. Why you're even rubbing your hands together just to have this engagement with Sammy?
It's cold. I'm rubbing my
What
hands.
did you want to ask him?
I wanted to ask Sammy. Sammy, I understand that you have a beef with this issue, but just because Uganda and Tanzania and Zambia and Mauritius and Seychelles are not doing it, does it mean, therefore, that we must also... That's really what I was going to ask him. This country, for those who are listening, is called Kenya. Okay? So, he has a reason. And I'm sure he would be able to explain and say why it is he's giving those examples. The examples are good, but the examples that were being given, if I listen to Raila Odinga well, he was talking about trends that are now being considered internationally. And the thing that he said was, look, this presidential system, the parliamentary system has proven to be, should we say, it presents more accountability. But then again, look, let's get back to basics. We're talking to a politician, a very seasoned politician, who is explaining things from the perspective he would like us to understand. Okay?
So there are two perspectives.
Yes.
Kuna file ya wananchi na kuna file ya nyumbani.
Actually, I would look at it differently. There are businessmen who also have two accounting systems. Kuna ile ya KRA
na kuna
ile yetu. In fact, even three, and then kuna ile wa shareholders.
Yeah, shareholders.
Yes.
Let's go to John. John in Nairobi, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Very well.
Yeah, the Bible says, who much is given, much is expected.
Yes.
True.
So for the politician, as Mr. Moga was saying, political speak, it is not just political speak. When they talk, it's not like when me and you talk. The people on the ground don't take it as political speak.
They take it as
They
truth.
take it as the gospel truth.
Yeah.
So when Uhuru calls Raila Mogoroki, the people on the ground know that Raila is Mogoroki. And that is the reason why we had a problem in 2007. That's why Rwanda went the route that it went. And politicians must know that whatever they say has an implication on the ground. In fact, very serious implications.
It's weighty.
John, do you really think politicians don't know this?
They do.
Then they should know that we know.
Yeah. So essentially what
they
you're
do.
telling people is that you don't care.
No.
Yes.
Actually, no.
You know that people are
The
going to
conclusion...
if you know, City, and I hear what John is saying, because if you are aware that the people know, but you still go ahead and say things in the manner in which you say them, knowing how people are going to take you, then you really don't care about what their opinion is.
Actually, that is certainly one way of looking at it, but wouldn't you argue the complete opposite, that you actually do care? And that is why you are presenting it in the way that you do.
No.
So that they take it that way.
Yes,
So they take it
exactly.
No.
So I say you're a Mogoroki so that people believe that you're a Mogoroki.
Yes,
because
exactly.
I really care about the people.
care
I
about
really,
the
I
people.
really care about the people
No.
and their welfare,
No.
which is closely tied to
no,
mine.
To the Mogoroki.
I think that, sorry, but I think that's now where the problem is.
Absolutely.
Because now, if you take it that way, then that is exactly where our problem is.
Explain, because I don't seem to be understanding it. How is it exactly where the problem is?
I think you are taking it in a very elitist way.
Okay.
But, they talk about it, and then at the end of the day, you put them together and you think that it's okay. For you and me, maybe we are here and we have some little level of education, we might take it that way. But the people there on the ground, they don't take it that way.
It's different.
And that is why, let me just bring it home. That is why trying to tell Raila in Central is impossible. Because there are some things that Uhuru said about him that people are reminding him. Even if he was not saying it, even if it was political speak, but the people on the ground did not take it as political speak.
It stuck with
They
them.
took it as a gospel truth. So it will be very difficult for him to go now and redo what he was saying about Raila.
John, do I hear you to say that the general public are genuinely gullible, so that when politicians speak, they believe everything what the politician says?
Exactly. Yes.
Are you gullible, John?
Generally. Very. We are very gullible.
Human beings are gullible. That's why.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, Paul, John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's hear from Paul, who's in Lucky Saba.
Yeah. Morning, John. Yeah.
Morning.
Thank you. Now, to give my contribution.
Yes.
Now, I don't know why people.
Bad line there, John. Paul, bad line. Paul, bad line. Let's see if we can get you back in a better line. But we want to say goodbye to our friends on KTN Home who've been with us since 7 o'clock. Join us again. Tomorrow is Friday. Yes, tomorrow, Friday. We'll be on KTN Home from 7 again up to 9. But this show broadcasts on Spice FM every weekday morning from 6 a.m. We're here until 10 a.m. And you can catch us on our social media handles. We live stream the show on video on YouTube, on Facebook, and Twitter. You can also listen to us on Spice FM, wherever you are around the country. These conversations continue. Keep it right here.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM.
All right, so
Nyeri.
7 to 9. You don't believe the people can be gullible to that extent?
No.
But you've witnessed it for yourself.
No, I actually don't believe people can be gullible to the extent that we are actually saying. They're actually not. What we are calling gullibility is what I would call the expression of hope.
Okay.
You see, when politicians speak, they represent hope for very many people, because the things they often say have to do with how it is they intend to make the lives of the people they're talking to better. And even when they are not, they represent that hope that with them, something better will come. So when you say gullible, it's like assuming that these are people whose capacity to think and think through issues is at the very best a minimum. And I'm saying, no, it's not that.
So what hope is this, that then people would go and believe that this person is not the best person for the country? And you get to that point where it actually is so ingrained in you that you are like, no. What I have heard for very many years is that this person is not the best person to lead this country.
It starts off with just political contest and someone trying to make their position better. And usually, politicians believe that you do it better when you find someone to blame for certain things or you demonize someone.
Yeah.
So you look for that person.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at this narrative we're talking about, from the time Jaramogi Oginga Odinga opposed certain perspectives that he and the then president had shared, and he formed his own political party, the narrative was not that they had disagreed, depending on where you came from. It was, these people want to take power from us.
Yep. Through the back door.
Yes, it continued.
Yep.
And it's a narrative that became generational. Now, when something is generational, getting rid of it is really very difficult. Yes, it is easy to build on it rather than to counter it. So then, let's pause. Then you are talking about Central Kenya, people who have literally, physically experienced land and property that is theirs being taken away. They've experienced it. It's in their history. My friend, when you then present this would-be leader who is opposing you as somebody who will take away their land, they will resonate with it. They are not going to start thinking, will he not? The lived experience, it has happened.
Okay, but
so why can it not happen again?
But City,
yes,
if we just look at anecdotally, in the country, 75% are those that are below 35. We can also say that in Mount Kenya, 75% of the population does not know this thing of the Muzungu taking away their land.
Actually, they do. They do. What they don't resonate with when it comes to leadership, who say they fought for our mouth, it's okay that you fought. That's good, thank you very much. Now we're fighting something different. And you know why? Because the fight for a new generation then comes to basically this. How is this going to help me? Forget that universal thought of the community, me. How is it going to help me? And unfortunately, that narrative was watered down by the outcome of certain things in our politics. If you're talking about central Kenya, the majority of people who died during the Mau Mau were not the white settlers. It was the natives of that particular region. The vast majority. Okay? And part of it was because they also formed, not exclusively, but the majority of people who are considered home guards came from, again, central Kenya. So I'm saying the stage was set for a certain disparity which is easy for a politician to exploit. And these narratives we talk of are...
my question is, why would a generation of people who were born in the 90s, that is 30 years after independence, why would that generation of people who were born in the 90s still hold this so dear?
Why would they have those hang-ups? Why would they have those hang-ups?
That because our forefathers lost their land, so anybody who wants to come and grab power is...
The reason it's not necessarily them. The reason is not necessarily. What I mean is this. Remember, some of them have fathers who lived in that era. They are alive and well, and they're still opinion shapers. They have not, it's not as though that generation died and went away, so they're gone. They're not there. Number one. Number two, there are times when a narrative suits your purposes. You may not agree with it, but it suits your purposes. Three, it may be a narrative that everyone appears to believe in. So your individual thinking and feeling is put aside. Even if logically you think this can't be true, but everyone around you seems to think in a certain way. So it is safer to go with the crowd. Let me give a different example. An example is often given that when we had problems in 2007, there were utterances that were attributed to Raila Odinga with regards to staying in rented premises and paying and not paying rent. That gathered momentum. It was this day and age you would be told that thing went viral. Okay? Anyone who owned property and came from central Kenya felt this man is ensuring that he's taking food from our mouths. Because if people live in your house and don't pay you rent, then you know that investment...
taken over your property.
Exactly. Essentially, that's what they've done. Now, narratives always find a place to nestle, a place to sort of like sit. And if you give a narrative time, as I said, people don't then examine it. It's just the norm that people go by. In my neck of the woods for the longest time, you think there were no negative narratives about people from central Kenya. There were. Until you would ask someone, do you know anyone from central Kenya who has caused you the sort of harm you're saying they cause people? And he'd look at you blankly because he didn't.
So
but
those folks were gullible.
I'm trying to say that gullibility isn't what we try to make it to be. And make it to be is like people don't seem to think. I'm saying they do.
But they still believe. They'll think it on one side, but then they'll still believe the narrative.
If it suits their purposes.
They'll put aside what they think. They'll follow the crowd.
Go with this narrative.
Yes.
Okay. Keep it right here. More conversations in the next hour. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We've been looking at dissecting the conversation we had with Raila Odinga. In the next hour, we have more conversations about the country. It's now 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
So there's still traffic on Mombasa Road in some parts, right around the SG. Ikeja and then moving towards Cabanas, but then it gets better after you pass General Motors, and then it gets worse right around Bellevue. Okay, so we still see some traffic getting into the CBD. That's where most of it is concentrated right now. The outer roads are looking much better, coming out of Jogger Road, coming off Gong Road, Langata Road, and a little bit off Thika Road. But Thika Road was the one watching today. It was quite terrible. So we'll get out of traffic hour in a short while and see how it all looks like, shan't we? Let us know if it does get a little bit crazier where you are. Spice FM KE. That's how you can get in touch on Twitter or text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This
2
is the
minutes
Situation
after
Room.
9 o'clock.
The only.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We skipped an hour of today's proverb there, City. So now say it twice.
No one can use another person's teeth to smile.
That's an 8 o'clock one.
9 o'clock. No one can use another person's teeth to smile.
Very good. Hi, and then at the end of the hour, you're going to tell us again and tell us what it means.
Yes, I will.
Very good.
I will. But lest those who are toothless feel that they are being discriminated against, I will also bring them into the conversation.
Toothless for real, or toothless like we say?
Toothless for general.
All right. Okay.
Toothless can't smile. And those who don't like smiling.
Or those who can smile without their teeth being seen.
Okay. So, we're where we are now. You were just giving us, that whole perspective of what was happening at independence, what has carried on up to today, some of the things that were done at independence that have had an impact up to today, and there are many. And you have more and more examples, and that's what we want to hear.
When people think of independence and the benefits we've received, they often relate that to where they come from or where they live or the places they have seen. And if you were to tell them that there are certain parts of the country where the things they're talking about not only don't exist, but people find it strange, they would actually think that you are fermenting fairy tales. I have been to parts of the country where you can see someone by the side of the road and you drive there in the hope that they might give you directions to where it is, because it's just a road and you're not quite sure. And the terrain just looks the same. When you get there, there is no one. So when you sort of get out of the car and look, you find the individuals you saw running away. And you're wondering, why are they running away? So with time you ask, and then someone goes down memory lane and tells you, actually, for the longest time in this part, every time people saw vehicles, they don't see them very often. And when they did, it was security. And they had this belief that whenever security appeared, they would either be arrested or harassed. So they're not waiting for you to either arrest them or harass them. I said, in this day and age? And he told, yes, in this day and age. So you say, okay. I said, don't you have sons and daughters from this part of the world who have vehicles? They said, oh, yes, we do. But then we know the vehicles.
Those ones we know.
Yes.
Any strange vehicle then belongs to security.
Yes, we know the vehicles. So, again, lived experience. Don't ever underestimate the power of lived experience. Don't. Because it is a narrative that defies logic. It's a narrative that defies even reality, as in current reality. It defies it completely. Yes. For instance, you've heard politicians talk. We've had politicians in this showroom, and many of them tell you how we're tribalistic. We are not really tribalistic. It is them who like fanning that narrative of tribalism, because if you look at nations where people take tribalism or tribalism seriously, hey,
take it seriously.
yeah, where they take it seriously.
They mean business.
They mean business with it. They're not joking about it. Apart from just the body count of people who die, people begin a conversation by asking you where you come from. I've been to countries on this continent where you are with somebody who's a native of that place, and they enter a taxi, and the first thing they ask the taxi driver, where do you come from? And you ask, why is it important? So I just want to know.
Will it affect the way in which I'm being driven today?
These people can't carry me.
And you're wondering, goodness gracious me, you mean
these people cannot carry
these
me.
people? And it's these people. No, I cannot get into a vehicle with these sort of people. And any Kenyan who gets into a taxi never asks where that person comes from. It may be a conversation as they're being driven. Can I go to such and such a place? Yes. They get in.
They get in.
They don't even think twice.
It's true, actually. I don't think Kenyans are tribal because, I mean, just looking at, again, like you said, countries that you've been to and you see that just on the brink, all it would take was a word or somebody to raise their hand and you would plunge that particular area into some kind of conflict based on tribe. It is a reality. But I think also realizing the volatility of such a situation is very important to then use to preserve and safeguard that which you do have. And I think it's also very dangerous ground, again, upon which leaders use that position to try and divide Kenyans. Because you see situations where Kenyans come together against an external threat. Kenyans are not thinking about who is from where. Kenyans are always coming together on that. So there's a lot, even as we talk about things that have gone wrong, there's a lot that works in this country. I'm telling you, I'm speaking from experience. There's a lot that works in this country that you actually don't want to throw to the dogs and perch all of this on some ill-spun narrative by politicians. You don't want to do that. They too know that actually Kenyans are not tribal, and that you really should not be able to divide them on that. Talking about things like Raila Odinga is not welcome in Central. Well, I find it very difficult to believe that he would be able to walk into Central, for example, and have a sit down with people and they would chase him away. I don't think that is going to happen.
If that narrative that you're speaking of was actually true, even at the time when President Kibaki became president and they went on a tour of Central with Raila Odinga, all that chant of Jamba Jamba would never have been
happened.
there.
They
wouldn't have. They would have sat stone-faced and looked at this intruder and wondered what on earth he's doing here.
And would not even have received him.
No, he wouldn't.
So that's what I'm saying. There's a need to look at really the underlying between all of these things that are said. So when somebody comes and tells you those people, or we have not been able to welcome him because of what we've been told or how he is, Kenya's not really a tribal. It is not. Look. I've seen it. I've seen the way in which it can be. You will not be able, in the country that I'm from, somebody from the north coming to sell more than chewing gum and pins in market in the south is impossible. It's only now, today, that they'll allow you maybe to have a stall. Otherwise, you'll sell with a tray outside the outside the gate of the market.
Or you go and sell in your region.
Or you go, exactly. So what are we talking about? And it's volatile because you hear the things that would happen as a result of that. You will Simbarati has a position as member of parliament in Nairobi, but his ancestors are from Kisii. Impossible.
And he's also eyeing a seat there.
Impossible. Your name is what? And you're coming to... No, we can't. We have an agreement over who will be president of the country because you've agreed on north-north, south-south. That one we know. But then you're from Plateau State, you go and sit, you want to be member of House of Assembly in Enugu State. It's impossible. It will not happen.
You know what I find interesting? It's only mentioned north and south. Surely you must have east and west in
well, I mean, the general geography.
I mean, this country.
It's not just in Nigeria. It's used. What do we talk? We talk about the global north and the global south. Look at all the wars that have taken place.
We also talk about the east and the west.
No, but do you ever hear? Look at all the wars that have taken place in the globe. On the globe, we talk about north-south. Look at the wars that took place in the United States. North-south. Is there east and west United States? Of course there is.
Yes, there is. East Coast.
But when you talk about the global north and the global south...
West Coast.
Yes, but do you hear about it? Do you hear about the global east and the global west? You don't. It's just the euphemisms that are used.
You guys. Okay. There's a Western media.
Good Lord. Okay.
Look, you know the thing.
Are we in the west of India? So are we Western nations? to the Indians?
You know, there's John, one of our callers, began what he wanted to speak about by quoting scripture. Okay? If you look at scripture and the myriad of quotations you can glean from it, I'm talking about the Christian scripture, you can find scripture for every occasion. Yes. But with everything that one says, even if it's the truth, even if there's a truism to it, there's always the subject of contextualizing. Okay? I actually thought that the handshake between the president and his deputy was good for the country. And this is why I thought so. Given the problems we'd had in the year 2007 and 2008, if the two communities that represented the turmoil that we had there, with one being the aggressor and the other one receiving the aggression, I thought this is the right path that you take towards bringing cohesion to the country. But now, herein lies the problem. With every political move, there's always an underlying narrative that nobody is speaking about, and yet it exists. And that underlying narrative is the narrative that led to the problems that became so evident. And if you don't look at the genesis of that narrative and ask yourself how best to deal with it, we have institutions that are supposed to deal with it. There's the National Cohesion and...
Integration Commission.
Yes, exactly. Which, was it not dubbed the Truth and Justice Commission or something? Or was that something?
That was a different
That's
one.
a different one? Okay. But functions are supposed to be more or less the same?
That was investigating historical injustices, blah, 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 did a report, blah, blah, blah. It's in the shelf somewhere.
And blah, 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 and put it on the shelf somewhere. Now, that putting on the shelf is the problem. Not these are the things we're talking about. The putting on the shelf is now the narrative and the culture that we've assumed for many things. A problem is seen, identified, in all honesty. Experts are actually set loose to ensure that they come up with an understanding of what the problems were, the causes and everything around it, and possible solutions. That's it. If we had a situation where we were then discussing the various processes that have been taken to ensure that the findings are actually put in a position where they can bear fruit, and then we're talking about the outcomes and saying, there was a failure here, but this is what we did. Our discussion would be very different. But it's dismal, disappointing, and depressing when you have, for instance, a situation with the mental health of the country. Commission, task force, set to task, findings arrived at, and then zoop.
Kwisha. But are we really interested in confronting our issues?
Me, I'm interested.
As a country, like fully. If you look at it this
me,
way.
Me, I'm interested as a country.
in confronting the
You're
issues.
interested as a country. You yourself.
Upande wako wewe binafsi. Because, you see, some of those things, one of the reasons why these things sit on the shelves and there's no pressure to remove them from those shelves reflects where we are as a country. A Kiwumi Commission, Enosopukia. TJRC, Ndongo Land Commission, sijui which commission. They have investigated things. This one, where we call violence around elections, there was a Waki Commission, right?
Yes, there was.
There was a Kiwumi Commission.
Yes, there was.
Both came up with issues. TJRC looked at, okay, so what is the genesis of this? How do we address this? It's sitting somewhere. What we just talk about is, we need to implement the TJRC report. We need to implement the TJRC. When it suits you, you say that.
Eric,
and then the shoes on the other foot and you're like,
okay, why do you think we take
unataka kuamsha vitu? Sometimes you have to think before you say things. Why you see that coming out of a president? Think before you... Some of these things, you revive them and then what?
Unfortunately, they must be revived.
Why?
The thing is, when something is festering and you've determined to ignore it, not cover it, because you can't really cover it, you ignore it, you think it has gone away or it has resolved itself. It never does. What it does is it mutates. When it then comes out, it comes out as something really genuinely ugly. And it's not something that you're going to be able to control. So when you bring it out, it means you're in control. You are allowing it to come out. So you have a measure of what you can do to move it along so that you arrive at the point you want. But if you don't, it erupts on its own.
What can be done? We're talking about, we're looking at the festering that has taken place when it comes to some narratives that are being spun, when that temperature seems to be rising and there seems to be some kind of pressurized animosity and that it will only blow up when things get bad. Eric has just mentioned the slurry of the whole list of commissions that have been instituted to take care of some of these things. And if you want to be honest, in terms of what they've resulted in, it hasn't really made a change. Nobody has really been brought to book about the things that they say or the things that are put out there in the minds of people. It doesn't really do anything. And I'm saying that, you know what? It hasn't really gotten to the point that has made anybody uncomfortable. And usually when you find that something permanent is being done about an issue, it is because that issue became so bad that made everybody unbelievably uncomfortable. And that's when they said, okay, here we have to do something about it. But until then, I'm not leave that thing. It's not, until then, until and unless things get so hot. Because if this attitude of, okay, let's do something about it, let's appoint some people here, they form a board, they do a report, until things get so bad that you touch and feel, it's been proven, nobody's going to do anything about it. Nobody has felt it to the point whereby you say, okay, let's do something. The warning signals have gone unattended. And there are very many. You talk about it festering, it is festering. Even now, it is festering. But it's like people are waiting to see an explosion or an implosion. Hiroshima, that's what people are waiting for. And then they'll say, oh, okay, perhaps we need to do something about it. But the warning signals, the festering that you're talking about, the smoke signals that have gone up, nobody's looking at them and saying this is something that could essentially... And there are examples of how things have gone from 0 to 1,000 like that. And people didn't know what hit them.
Accelerated. So if you determine,
so the warning signals are there.
If you
choose
want
not to do something about them, you'll be flattened.
If you deal with if you deal with the other side of things, okay, identify. So what is likely to accelerate this? Deal with that. The accelerant. Make sure that the accelerant doesn't come anywhere close to this.
That's what I'm saying.
You're doing well.
That's what I'm saying because you can see it. But if you choose not to do something about it,
don't necessarily address this issue. Just make sure that nobody's coming close to the fire.
Which is okay. And then you'll find that people are coming close to the fire with this accelerant. I want to pour it there. Deal with that. But the thing is, nothing is being dealt with. We're sitting and talking around issues and we're saying, okay, well, you know what? And then this happens and the NCIC points a finger and says, guys, don't do that. And that's it.
That's it. It ends
Are we
there.
going to hear anything else from them again until something else happens? Did it take Kissy, for example, for them to speak? And that's what I'm saying. There's certain things you can do. There's certain things you can do to make sure something like that does not happen. Is it being done? No.
Okay, let's take a break at 18 minutes after 9, see what's happening in terms of the weather, and then we continue the conversation. I'd like you to join in 0719 012 600 or Spice FM KE on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Have you seen Am I live?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Evan Nosingishi was asking me what channel is Spice FM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
you.
you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero.
Okay, so the weather with Spice Nairobi for most of today, going to highs of 28, lows of 16. In Nyeri, 18 degrees, sunny conditions throughout, highs of 27. It'll go to highs of 29 in Nakuru, currently at 19 degrees, 26 the high in Eldoret, 31 in Kisumu today, and mostly cloudy. sunny, mostly sunny conditions rather. In Kakamega, sunny conditions as well. 31 the high, 33 the high in Mombasa. It's partly sunny at 28. A few clouds here and there in Malindi at 26. Highs of 31. 28 the high in Kampala today. It's sunny at 22. Okay, it's mostly sunny in Dar es Salaam at 26. We'll go to highs of 33 today. Light rain in Johannesburg continues at 19, going to highs of 21, 26. And also raining now in Lagos. 33 the high and lows of 26. We're looking at partly sunny conditions in Kinshasa at 24, going to highs of 33. All right, it's 9 degrees and warming up ever so slightly in Beijing. Sunny conditions, however, coming down to lows of -8. 6 degrees and going to highs of 12 in Paris. Still quite cloudy and a chance of rain here. Fair skies in London at 5, highs of 10 and lows of 7. And finally for now, into Thursday morning in New York, 1 degree, going to highs of 5 and -1.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Isa Hassan
94.4 Spice
we have
FM,
mastered
Nairobi.
the art of postponing all our problems. Become very, very good at it. If we put it into the context of, look at the kind of political leaders that we've had in the country since independence, the national leaders that we've had, right? And because if we talk about then not addressing the problem, then it comes to leadership. What is it that would have influenced these leaders not to want to go ahead and confront this and address this? From our first president, Jomo Kenyatta, to the other leaders around him, Jaramogi, and the JMs, to coming to Moi and the leaders around him, to coming to Kibaki, those around him now, Uhuru Kenyatta, those around him, including Raila Odinga, William Ruto, and the rest. What is it that then would be what is influencing them just shepherding the country this way? Maybe they're looking at it and thinking, you know what, one step at a time. One step at a time. And remember, Raila was giving us that whole context of, look, this is where we were. For example, in 2003, when I came into the government, this is where we are right now as a country. This is where we were economically. This is where we are right now as a country. If you look at our development, if you look at our population growth, if you look at the efforts that have been made at maintaining peace. So when he says, I would like to be remembered as a person who contributed to A, having a united country, B, having a country that is prosperous, and C, having a country that observes the rule of law, he's basically saying, I'm doing my bit. I'm doing my bit to get here. Mzee Moi, today is Mzee Moi's 1 year anniversary in commemoration since he passed away. 24 years as a president, many years before that as a vice president, many before that as a minister, before that as a member of the Legislative Assembly. And in his wisdom, he was like, okay, so one step at a time, issues crop up, do we address them, do we not, up to where he handed over the baton to Mwai Kibaki. Wouldn't you say that probably these leaders that we actually look at and we look back at how they led the country, there's something that they were doing, there's something that they know.
When you talk about opportunities, in politics, one, with hindsight, of course, you see many, many missed opportunities, but you also see people who took advantage of certain opportunities and the benefits that came from it. Remember, President Moi, one, accepting that we could have multipartyism, and I mean it, accepting that we could have multipartyism in this country, that in itself was revolutionary. Because right across this particular continent, well, not even this continent, and elsewhere in the world, people became strong men and they were holding on to power. Okay? Meaning, only thing that would remove them from power is death. And in many cases, that's precisely what removed them from power, death. Not natural, attrition. Now, when you look at that allowing multipartyism, allowing elections, saying, fine, since we've begun a new chapter, I will be here for 2 terms, then I will leave. And actually leaving. that set us on a particular path, a remarkably good path. So we understood that, you know something? Actually, somebody can be president and they can leave. And it's a trend. We now, it's become normal for us to believe that presidents come and go. There are countries that are still grappling with it. Some because they've had one president for so long, some they've had new presidents, but under such contentious circumstances that things haven't evened out. So if you're talking about opportunities that were used well, this is one. Now, because of that, we could say then we were able to consider moving forward because the platform had been raised. And of interest, it also set in motion a process where you could see presidents leaving power and still living in the country.
Quiet, peaceful.
They're just ordinary citizens. And what is of interest, people are happy, were happy to see them. It's like President Moi became even more popular once he had stepped down. People liked to see him. They were happy to see him. What am I saying? The opportunity to do something that would propel the nation forward had actually been done. Now,
so he played his part.
No, he did. He among the many things he did, you know, you hear stories of how the economy was almost on its knees. Well, why don't we talk about that after the...
Let's hear some callers, right?
Yes.
Anthony in Mombasa and Patrick in Vihiga. Let's start with Anthony in Mombasa. Anthony, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
I love the discussion.
Asante sana.
I was reasoning to the former Prime Minister. Allow me to respond to this. The last call on the last hour who said Kenyans are gullible. Let me tell him, Kenyans were gullible.
Not anymore.
But now they are not. And that is the biggest mistake the politicians are making. Someone like Raila comes and tells us it was a coincidence. We are not gullible. We are not stupid enough to believe that. We know the truth. We know Uhuru was boxed into a corner by the MCAs. They boxed him until he agreed. So he didn't come with it on the table. You get my point?
Okay.
Yes.
And the issue of retirement we just been talking about right now, I wish you give that advice to the right honorable Prime Minister.
For when he retires?
He should have retired already.
From what?
He should have gone with Moi, all after Moi. By now, even the last election after he was defeated, he should have just resigned and retired honorably. We would have respected him. He wouldn't be into mudslings with people. And everything will be happy for him.
Could I ask a question?
Yes,
what are these circumstances that we must consider when we're talking about retirements of politicians? Is it their age? Is it their participation? Is it they're losing an election? Is it they're winning an election? What is it?
Age first comes in. Then it is followed by he's been there for too long. He's analog. We need people who are digital, who will move us forward. We want people with digital thinking. They will move and propel our nation forward. Those are the people we need in leadership. Let him remain there, out there, as a retired MZ who can give advice. His advice will be sought always. He'll be called to mediate when there are issues. But he should just leave another generation to take over now. They should allow that.
Can I ask you, does a younger, more digitalized generation, as you said, guarantee good leadership?
As in, if we look at the leaders we have right now, I believe we have leaders who are young, who are digital.
But does it guarantee good leadership? From what you've seen take a pick of the young leaders that you see right now, right, who are in the digital era. Who do you think would be the one that is, putting forth this good leadership that you can say as a result of them being young and kind of like with it?
So what do you say? Are they like Raila?
No, I'm asking. I really want to know if I'm actually asking, not because I have an answer.
Because if they're like Raila, then Raila can step aside and leave his side B to continue.
I would bank on the deputy president.
Okay.
The people surrounding him.
Yeah.
If you look at them, most of them are young people who are hardworking, given the opportunities they can move our country forward.
Okay.
Those are the people we need.
Okay.
Thank you, Anthony. Let's hear from Patrick in Vihiga. Patrick, good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Very well.
Yeah, allow me to pick an issue from this conversation. Of the many commissions that are on the shelves gathering dust,
yes.
I believe the current group of leaders cannot solve the problem because most of them have inherited the traits connected to underworld dealings like corruption.
Mm-hmm.
So if one would like to pick an issue from that, they will be told, but you see, this is what you did in the past. So I'm looking for a young leader who is not attached to any politician, to any system.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say somebody around 40 years.
Okay.
Who has nothing to do with independence leaders, who has nothing to do with the current group of leaders.
Yep.
Who can come up and clean the mess. Without fearing that he is going to lose political mileage. Let me take you to some history in Poland. I can't remember the year, but between 1908 and 1989, there was a head of the labor movement. I think a gentleman by the name Lech Walesa.
Mm-hmm.
He was an electrician from Nadski town. So when he called for a countrywide strike, the authorities stamped him just a certain politician from Nadski. Later on, because of the popularity, he became this certain politician from Nadski became president.
Yep.
He was not attached to any politician. He was not attached to any system. And since then, the Polish problems ceased. We have never heard of any strike or anything from Poland. This is to say, our leaders fear talking about the current problems here affecting the country, like strikes, teacher strikes, doctors, and so on. Because should they do that, they are going to lose votes and the political mileage.
Mm-hmm.
So they are not providing a panacea to our problems in the country.
They're just avoiding to deal with their own problems.
The person who would have done that would have been the deputy president, but he has also underworld dealings. Yeah, so the current group cannot provide anything substantial to help Kenyans at all.
Okay. Good points. Thank you very much, Patrick. Mike in Kisumu.
Hello.
Hi.
I am back.
Yes.
And somebody who got me back is Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
I heard the way Anthony is speaking, and I was amazed.
Why?
You know, when you say that young leaders guarantee good leadership, yet their mentors, when they come into politics, are the same people who have underworld dealings. Why is the assurance really? Because
there's no direct guarantee anyway. But
there's no direct guarantee. Because,
but is it possible that from all of us Kenyans, as 47 million of us, is there a guarantee that at least one of us can be a good leader? I think I can say yes.
There is a guarantee.
Bas. So, is there a guarantee that from a population of the 75% of that population, can there be some sort of close to a guarantee that at least one of them can be a good leader?
Yes.
So the younger population then can have a good leader.
Yeah, they can have a good leader. But again, let us go back kidogo. We tried this from 2013. And I am surprised Anthony is saying that William Samoei Ruto. I'm not supporting Raila or Samoei Ruto. I'm non-partisan in this. But when Anthony, I liked his point until he said that we can guarantee that William Ruto is going to give us complete governance in this country.
Did he say that?
We go back from 2013, see the promises these people made. Come back to 2017, the second term, see the promises they made.
Yep.
The same guy in 2017 promised paid internship.
Yes.
Paid internship. You know, and then you come back to give graduates wheelbarrow to start pushing people around the estate to make their own money. Does it make sense? It means you're going back against your own words.
Yep.
You know, so if you can get a young generation who is neutral, non-partisan to any of these people who you think must raise your hand to the public, to tell the public this is the guy.
Yep.
So that you make your own way up the ladder.
Without any strings attached to the current.
Exactly. Then we can get good governance.
Okay.
Because number one, when the strings have been attached, there is a tenth that you have to pay. I'm hearing, I don't know if it's rumor or it's true, I'm hearing there's a tenth that you have to pay to the person who maintained you and brought you to the limelight.
Yeah.
You know, you must give back the hand.
Yeah. You owe them that at least.
If you can get somebody who's very neutral, non-partisan, who does not lean on any of these two sides that we've had in the recent ages, then Kenya can be guaranteed to have good leadership. But when anybody has leaned to these two sides that we have, then we're just going to have the same kind of leadership that we had, where they don't care about the public mwananchi, the common mwananchi, and it's only the interest that they push forward.
We hear you. Thank you, Mike.
Exactly.
Asante sana. Let's go to Siaya. Mila Menga.
Jambo, Eric.
Jambo.
Say hi to City and Ingo.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, you know, I got your interview with the Prime Minister, and it was amazing. What I realized is you couldn't manage that gentleman. I think that is the gentleman I want to be my president in 2022. Yeah, because I looked at the experience that guy has, and when we talk about the situation that we have in our country today, where we are talking about paying loans with the challenge of foreign exchange, and the introduction of African free trade area, where we trade within African nations. And this is a guy who now has the experience of what is happening across Africa. I strongly believe that this is a gentleman, when we put it into leadership of this country, he will put Kenya at a state where we could compete well with other nations within Africa. And for me, if you ask me, Kenya is disparate for that, as we speak. And two, you know, when people talk about youthful leaders, and coming from what we've seen, where something that Kenyans rarely see, and it was unfortunate that these young people could even take a gun and shoot somebody when they are dancing somewhere, smoking what they like to smoke. These are the young leaders that we aspire to. And people, when people talk about Raila retiring, you know, you put yourself into Raila's shoes. This is somebody, if he says he wants to retire today, 1 million people will go to his home and tell him not to retire. 1 million people. You know, we saw what happened when he was being sworn in at Uhuru Park. It was not Raila. It was people who, and he narrated it very well, what was happening.
So his supporters will not allow him to retire, so therefore he cannot retire.
His supporters will not allow him to retire. By the way, if there was somebody...
Do the supporters have anything that would then make them tell Raila, okay, now you can retire?
When would it be?
They don't have.
Is it upon achieving anything, attaining a certain age? What would it be that would make them say, now mzee, pumzika?
If there was somebody to fill that space, that is the only way.
What if he decides he wants to retire then?
he will be told not to retire.
And what if he insists he wants to retire?
I mean, they're not going to shackle him to the seat, are
1
they?
million people will camp at his home. That's what Miller is saying.
And I'm saying he will tell 1 million people no.
To leave his home.
And then tell him, you retire, we are here, you are a leader, you have not retired.
No. The only thing that he can do is to have a genuine reason. You know, Raila, I saw him, I heard him talking to you. That is a very sincere person, a very genuine person. And let us not pin Raila based on his age. You know, let us reason. Yeah. If you have an aspiration, if you want to change the country, and there are people who resonate with you, and then it's not a small number, 10 million people across the country, and then you want to drop that thing and fake that, you know, I'm unwell, I can't go on. You will demoralize a whole bunch of.
Actually, Miller, your point is a valid one. The current president of the U.S. is 78 years old.
Yes. That is it. That is then two. I wanted to talk about, if you allow me, I wanted to talk about what happened in CI, the passing of BBI. And it is so unfortunate. The level of psychopathy in my home
neck
county,
of the woods, yes.
It's so unfortunate that people can be. And you know, this NCIC, I talked with a few of them when I heard of what was happening.
What actually happened?
Let me just discuss what I discussed with them. You know, these are honorable people. I don't want to go into details of what happened in the house.
That could be less honorable.
What I want. Yes.
No, go ahead.
Okay, go on, please.
Yes, I asked them. Now, you've passed this thing, and we've not been informed of what is in the document. We did not do public participation. And I asked them, do you have a budget? Do you have a budget for doing public participation? One of them told me, no, we don't have that. We do not even discuss about the budget of doing public participation, you know. And then I asked another key person in the government, and he told me, no, we are not discussing that. The people of CI know what is the document. Now I want to ask them, and I want to ask them, and I want to put this one on the head of Raila Odinga, because this is his home county. I know we've given it to the country, but I fear that once he becomes the president of this country, CIA will lag behind in development, because they will be the most uninformed people in the country. Because the BBI talks about policies. Yeah, there's part of it that talks about policies that will directly affect the people of CIA. And when you have not informed these people, I want to.
But Miller, Miller.
Yes.
To what extent is a county assembly expected to conduct public participation? It is not their role to do civic education on the BBI draft.
No.
That is the job of the IEBC, and that will be the job after this thing has gone through them and gotten out to a point of a referendum. So it wasn't really, if we need to be fair to the county assembly. The county assembly received it. The county assembly took it through a committee. What we can question is what efforts the committee made to engage the public on receiving some feedback about the draft, but not necessarily conducting civic education on it, is it?
Hello.
Yeah?
Yes.
Now you know I expect my county assembly members to be proactive,
to be better.
I don't expect them to sit back and wait for IBC. That's their responsibility.
Actually, we're trying to tell you on this particular matter, it isn't.
We've lost him. We've lost Miller. So let's take a break at this point. 10:15. Let's see what's happening on the roads and then continue the conversation. 0719 012 600.
Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, so looking much better in most parts of the city now, trying to get into the CBD as well. The underpass, or rather the overpass at the Globe Cinema, trying to get into the CBD also has opened up, and so that's fine. The traffic that was on Thika Road, much better. Now, when we saw the heavy traffic on Mombasa Road past the Siokima SGR, that was a mess, but it's flowing smoothly now, and that has opened up quite some getting into the CBD. That should be fine. So traffic hour officially over. Let's see what it looks like through rest of the morning. Talk to us on Spice of MKE on Twitter. You can text as well on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice.
Well, the younger generation may not guarantee anything. In fact, they don't have to guarantee anything. The older generation has demonstrated their limits.
Actually, you know, sometimes when we speak about the younger generation, I get the impression that people are speaking about another country as opposed to this one. Why? But this presidency is a younger presidency.
Younger than who?
Younger than the ones who have been there before them. They got into power when they were younger. This is the youngest group of... We've not had anybody this youthful in that position.
So I hear you saying there's a healthy... What you're saying is that there's a...
been calling themselves youth.
Actually, I said youthful, not youth.
So you're saying there's a progression towards that?
I'm not only saying there's a progression towards it. I am saying that you cannot premise good leadership on age. The factor of age, because if we were to look at it, then I would say, okay, why don't we do a little tour around the world and look at people who got into leadership young and what became of that youthful start? Just take your pick.
Joe Biden, 27 years old, senator.
Yes. He's now president. Yes.
But he got the chance at senator at that point.
I am saying, I'm not saying they aren't there. I'm just saying, look
Finland.
at the progression.
How old is a leader of Finland? 38 or something.
No. She was much younger than that.
Trudeau in Canada is now 39.
There you go.
Macron.
Younger people. We are talking about 40 and below.
You know, Eric.
I think we're saying give it a chance.
I am not saying they don't exist.
Sure. I hear you what you're saying, CT. Give a chance to younger leadership. But I'm saying that younger people don't guarantee good leadership. You can't just say, because the person who is here is older, bring in a younger person and then we will see better results.
There's no guarantee.
It doesn't guarantee it.
Not guarantee. No. It's just that you need to take it. So if you're going this direction and you're seeing that you have not arrived,
give somebody else an opportunity to do it.
Yes.
An opportunity in politics. Give.
Yes.
Okay.
Jeffrey in Mombasa. Good morning.
Good morning. Bye.
Hi. How are you?
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good,
and
thanks.
You? Well, I'm okay. I thank God.
Good.
Well, let me make my point regarding age and whatever you're saying.
Yes.
I think age is not an issue when it comes to leadership.
Yep.
I think as a country, what we'll need actually is strong and independent institutions.
Mm-hmm.
This is what will guarantee leadership. It doesn't matter who will be there. But if we have independent institutions, just like America, what happened the other time, you saw institutions stood to do what was right. That's what will guarantee that young leader or even that older leader. Because if our institutions are well managed, people who are patriotic to their country, I believe anyone, regardless of their age, can lead a country. Besides that, at least devolution has given us a platform to have somebody who can also inherit leadership in this country. Give a simple example of Kwale, how the leadership of Kwale that is there at the moment. Another example of Makueni, Kivutha Kibwana. We also have Alfred Mutua, how these people have performed in their counties. These are the very people, at least, if they can offer themselves to Kenyans, at least we can put consideration. Let us forget about these people who are making drama, counter attacks depending on what somebody has said or what he has done for the others. This is not the kind of story we need to see. At least our mindset as Kenyans must change, not to follow those people who are giving handouts. We need people who can give leadership, people who will depend on the institution, people who will respect institutions.
So what I hear you say, Geoffrey, is let's give somebody else a chance.
That is the thing.
Not necessarily in
Let us get out
age.
of this mindset that we've had. Age is not an issue. Our institution must be strong. Whoever we put there, let them respect the institution.
But let them be
we'll have
different.
leadership. Yes.
Okay. Asante sana, Geoffrey.
Have a great day, guys. You are doing an awesome thing. God bless you.
Cheers, man.
You know, chronologically, you may be youthful, but you have the mindset of an older person.
Yeah.
Or you have the mindset of the very same people that you assume you want to get rid of. So what you'll have done is you'll have put the same mindset and given that person many more years to continue that same trajectory and that same thought. You see, each of the countries that we mentioned are Western countries.
Yeah.
And it is not the individual who usually is the person who's the focus. They become the focus because they've been made the focus, but they have a structure behind them.
Yeah.
Here, the individual is the structure. The individual is the focus. So it's a totally different setup. Now, when you talk about leaving, as is, let there be room, there are those who would argue, if you look at any political outfit in this country, there are many youthful people. They even have a youth wing, as in a wing that deals with the youth, okay, or caters for the youth. And one could even argue that given time, people rise up in ranks and eventually become, and on the top of the top of my head, I can actually look around the country and say, yes, so and so was this at some point, and over time, this is what they have become. Truth of the matter is this. The youth themselves are the ones who vote in these people who are older, the same youth. It's the youth themselves who distrust their own. If they didn't, the truth is
They would have put
they
somebody
would
else.
have put these youthful people in these positions of authority. If they're talking about, if we want to talk truth, reality, they are their best, worst enemies. They have the ability, but they are the ones who do not put that ability. They talk about getting a youthful person. They do not act on putting that youthful person into power.
Why? Because they don't trust their fellow youth, but they're giving them positions of leadership in other cadres.
It's because...
For example,
yes,
we can say, of all the MCAs we have in the country, more than half are 35 and below. We can look at the number of members of the National Assembly who are of that youthful age, let's say below 40. Senate also has senators who are younger than 40. Yep. You have people like Johnson Sakaja, who's a senator, who has just celebrated 36. That's that 36th birthday.
You know, here you are talking about
Right.
exceptions. If we had 20 Johnson Sakajas, then I'd say, yes, this is good progress. The youth are actually making their voices felt. Because the MCAs, low-hanging fruit, you are young in a population where there are very many young people, wherever it is you come from, you are the person who they'll resonate with the most because they know you. After all, the people who are your contemporaries. It's very understandable. You take it a notch higher, that's where it ought to count also. It ought to be at every level, MCA level, MP level, and you say, okay.
Even governor.
So do
the
we see
youth are
that-
speaking.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do we see
We have
adequate,
governor of, is it Kericho, who's a young governor?
do we see adequate
Youthful.
then-
Kericho.
So are you saying we don't see adequate injection of younger people putting themselves now into these positions? Because if we do, and the discourse then is around, this is what I can do, I'm someone of your age, see me as this, there's not enough of that. Because if we did, then you would see the decisions being made in their favor in terms of who they vote in. But because there's only one cadre in terms of age, that's who is going to be put in.
The youthful persons coalesce around the older people. And in so doing, their thinking is not any different from that so-called older person whom they keep talking about.
Would it change, though, if they were coalescing around somebody who was their age and who was putting themselves in positions of leadership?
There are many youthful listeners, and they should call in and tell us why it is they do not coalesce and vote in their own in all these positions. Because they can. They actually can. Why don't they? They must have their reasons. Why don't they?
It's coming up. By and by.
You see, by and by, you'll stop being...
Up. It's the same thing, you know. Sometimes I'm usually conflicted when you say, why can't the women elect their women? Why can't the youth elect
why don't they?
It's not like it's the old people who elect the old people. It's...
The youth, you see, the discussion here makes sense because the youth are more than everybody else.
Yes.
Okay? And also, women are known to be the steady voters. If they support a cause, they tend to go together.
Yeah.
Men will fragment their votes with the number of candidates who are there. So when people speak this way, they're asking, but if you can coalesce and vote this person in,
why not? Huh?
Why don't you just get one of your own and vote that person in? It's a valid question to ask. And why is it valid? Because there's a narrative that an opportunity ought to be given. They forget that the opportunity is given when you go to elect. That's the opportunity.
Make the choice.
And you all have it. Why don't you use that opportunity? What other opportunity are you waiting for? It isn't food that is brought to your doorstep and then you're told, here's the fork, here's the plate, eat. No. The opportunity, in this case, the fork and the plate, is the vote. Vote. Why don't they vote? So you're asking for something that you already have. You have the opportunity.
The power is yours.
You have it.
To make the decision.
You have it.
And make the decision.
Yes.
So I think it's interesting because there's a question that's left unanswered then. Is then why do we see this? If, again, responsibility is on your shoulder, 75% of the population, and you can make a decision in another way, instead of sitting around and complaining about that which exists currently, you then have the power, you have the opportunity to bring in someone different. Why is it not being done?
Because of the system.
There's a certain comfortability
the way the system is set up.
about the existing system.
Listen to this person.
It's the system.
Listen to this. What? What?
I don't even have...
I mean, and he was trying to say to the straight face.
He's just leaving.
Huh?
It's the way the system is set up.
To do what?
To disenfranchise
the
majority.
Youth.
The majority.
Okay. So it's the system's fault?
Yes.
Okay. So people are actually pressed down and oppressed?
It's a system set up.
Okay.
We've had the conversation about youth, by the way, many times, right? And that has always come out. System wired to basically disenfranchise and to keep you down there. Anyway, coming to the end of the show today. So let's talk about today's proverb and smile.
No one can use another person's teeth to smile. Even if it's false teeth.
So let me
they may have been somebody else's, but they're now yours.
It's not like friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ear, lend me your teeth to laugh a while. And then, this one, do it for yourself, or don't do it at all.
So why this proverb? What does it mean?
No one can be youthful in the voting on your behalf. I mean, if you feel strongly about something and you think it is important enough, then you also need to take the serious step of understanding what it is that you need to do to be able to achieve it.
Take action.
You have teeth. You want to smile. Even if your teeth look jagged, that's what you have. Smile with it.
Smile.
It'll be your smile.
Make your own happiness.
Even if your teeth are now absent and there's more gum than there is tooth.
It's yours.
It's yours. You smile.
Go with it.
Yes.
It's yours.
It's yours.
All right. Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today from 6 to now, coming up to 10 o'clock. Andu, are you feeling cold?
I am.
It's quite cold in here, isn't it?
It is.
It's the ambience.
It's the ambience of the room.
Yes.
The ambience of the studio room. It's very cold. So, say goodbye.
Goodbye. Have a good day, guys, and we'll talk again tomorrow.
Okay. Said so well. City, try and say goodbye like that.
Like? Clasp my hands together and say goodbye.
See you again tomorrow, folks. It's coming up to 10 o'clock. You'll have an interrupt music until 3 o'clock, and then Monique will be here to take you home on Spice Drive at 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock. We'll see you again tomorrow.